can go? Okay. Hello? Okay. Thank you for attending the Social Impact Conference organized by Project Freedom. Today we have an impressive lineup of speakers from all over the world to discuss how we can create a brighter future for mankind, how we can create wealth while finding solutions to global problems. Satoshi Nakamoto's invention was created as an alternative to the centralized financial system where 3.7 billion people remain excluded. We're here today because these 3.7 billion people matter, and it's up to every one of us to engage and find solutions. The Satoshi invention is likely to go down in history as the most important invention of our time. Every single person on Earth can add, transfer, and preserve value without borders. It doesn't matter if you are from Somalia, Canada, or India, or any remote corner on Earth, you can realize your full potential. The world will move to a new era, an era where the world becomes one, a decentralized world without borders. Look at the world from a distance. In a vast universe, you cannot see any borders. We're all from planet Earth, and we now have the potential to unite our efforts, collaborate, and build ecosystems together with people to transfer value regardless of where you live in the world. Applying the decentralized economic model of the future to the $500 billion social impact sector becomes very significant. Every existing industry will grow and flourish to the next level when these 3.7 billion people can also afford to buy the goods and services produced in advanced economies. Social impact is already the fastest growing asset class in the world. It's the next frontier that will fuel economic growth and the creation of new industries. The potential of this new era of decentralized collaboration using technology is beyond measure. We all have the opportunity to be part of this exciting journey that will define the next evolution of humanity. Just imagine if all of humanity can come together with ideas, create better prospects for all. Imagine when all of humanity comes together to solve the massive problems of economic exclusion, poverty, climate change, unsustainable debt, and start solving the immense global problem of plastic waste. All problems that have all reached epic proportions. Imagine a world coming together so that every child on Earth, regardless of their origin, has the opportunity to reach their full potential. We propose a new meaning to freedom, a freedom that transcends borders, a freedom for capital to reach the poorest communities on Earth, a freedom to unite a divided world. We choose to endure to turn this dream into reality, regardless of the challenges. Through social impact, communities can come together, have access to capital, share resources, and create wealth that will benefit the whole of mankind and not just half of mankind. In a world without borders, we all share the responsibility. We can't blame this government or that government or say it's someone else's problem to solve. Together, we can take responsibility to create wealth and solutions that will benefit everyone and not exploit the poorest among us. To achieve these goals, we need to be united and resolved. We will encounter challenges from those who want the world to remain stuck in the old model of exclusion and exploitation, because it suits them fine. In a world without borders, every single idea matters, no matter how small or where it comes from. Imagine our dream of a better world. Imagine a world without borders. Imagine a dream where all the world can live as one. Imagine no more. This exciting journey has begun. Our time has come. We have our noble mission, the dedication, the drive, the passion to see the world live as one. We are dedicated to this mission. Let's make it happen. Thank you. Introduce the first speaker. is taking the stage.
In the year 800, the baptism vow of the Christian church was changed because they had a huge problem. There was this god of thunder, Donar, and Donar had great marketing. Every time that the weather was bad, and all the people again believed in the god of thunder, the priests of the god controlled what was happening. And it was so hard to come out of this belief system. Even today, we still call Thursday as a link to the god of thunder. In the world of today, we are also part of a belief system. We follow our grand narrative, and our narrative is the narrative of the economy. We have to make money or else the world doesn't function. So if you bring together a programmer, an engineer, and a designer, you ask them to build the coolest thing of the world that will last for 1,000 years. Their eyes start to glow, and they start building. Until the business guy comes in. And he starts asking those questions. Okay, but how are we going to make money? How can we force people to pay? And how can we keep on paying? This question does something to the way we engineer our systems. We engineer them as a way that people are forced to pay, not to how they work. My name is Jan-Peter Doomernik. I work for a grid operator. We are the non-commercial part of the energy system. And we don't care about money. We care about that everybody has access to energy. We are part of a critical infrastructure. What we created is a community where we bring all the critical infrastructure parties together because we are not competitors. We want the best for society because this is in our DNA. We are looking for the younger generation who don't want to become rich, but who are purpose-driven. And this is why we participate in hackathons and created a community called Nature 2.0. And I wanted to give you an impression of what happened in April this year.
I hope for us and for the other teams in the competition to just make solutions that matter or can actually have an impact.
To really let your mind free, be creative without the limiting factor of money.
This is a moment we have been working towards for a whole year. The Nature 2.0 magic happens when they are using all this new technology and they start using it in a completely different way. And to be present at that moment, that is for me what it's all about.
Nature 2.0.
Nature 2.0 is meant to be insane, and it does not fail.
Nature 2.0 it's an amazingly innovative initiative to bring together the potential of amazing new technologies like AI, blockchain, various imaging technology with both the wisdom of nature itself and the wisdom of human beings about nature that's accumulated over the years.
It's a great experience to be around, to see all these teams work on all these different kind of use cases. They are all great ideas.
What I found particularly touching was that all these teams were really so ready to let go of these old economy concepts.
The Nature 2.0 magic happens when they are using all this new technology and have found a new narrative to build.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, stop
What we saw is that if you give people the time to think of how the world works and question them, is this normal? They start to see new opportunities.
We've seen sincere, open collaboration on something that is really important.
It's the end of the Hackathon 2019, but it is a stepping stone for the next things. People who joined our meetup will see the new events, the new chances of how we can improve the world beneficial for all. It's an ecosystem, it's a commons, and we are going to build it. The exploration hasn't stopped, it is just beginning.
Thank you. We are also astonished by the energy we're generating. We had two guys of Google TensorFlow joining a team. We had Ben Gertzel, who's walking around here with SingularityNet participating. So it's this new kind of thinking aligns a number of the big thought leaders in blockchain and AI. Nobody who works with us is going to become a millionaire because we are not about the money. We are about designing ecosystems that work. Because as humans, we have also such things as love and friendship, which work without a business case. So why don't build on that? We are looking for disruption, and disruption before it happens is always a crazy story. So if you have this new energy, a new technology called the internet, and you would go to a CD shop owner of 1995 and you would tell him, well, this new technology, in 20 years we're going to make Spotify. So forget your CD store, because people have access to all the music of the world for the price of a quarter CD per month. He will go raving mad, because you are turning his world upside down by such a crazy story, he won't believe it. Now we know it's normal. Now we deem it's normal. So this is the kind of crazy we are looking for in Nature 2.0. So I work for an energy company, and I really like what happens in forests. Because in forests, the entities work together. The big tree helps the small tree connected by a mycelium network. And by helping the small tree, the small tree doesn't have to become a competitor of the big tree, because they collaborate. Bringing it back to energy, this is an energy system that already works, because we share this planet with 8.7 million animal species who all have working ecosystems for their housing, for their food, for their energy, for their transportation. None of those ecosystems are based on ownership, identity like we use it, or on money. And still they function. They function because the value system beneath it is what is of value is freely accessible and abundantly available. This is how you drive evolution. What we deem valuable as humans is what is scarce and I can take away from you. It's a completely different line of thinking. So how could we translate this to the energy system? Well, this morning as you woke up, the sun was shining, delivering 1,500 times the amount of raw energy you need for free on your roof. And you only need 1 meter below in the power socket. But we humans created an energy system that transports energy nationally and internationally. Very complex systems with a number of parties who are not there to solve the engineering problem, but are in there for the money. It's the game of competition. But we humans also know other games, games of collaboration. So what would happen if we take those? Can we then create an energy system that is the system like in nature? It is a complex system, and a complex system you can change by changing the rules. So what if you do not pay for units of energy anymore, because paying for the units of energy enables the old system? What if you only pay if you force the system to operate? So if you can power your house from the sun, these drops of energy, it's the old joke, what is the cost of a drop of gasoline? It's free. Well, please fill my car with drops. If you can power your house like that, of course, energy is free. But if you force a system to operate, to transport, to generate, to store, or to convert energy, then you have to pay. But now, all the people share the same problem. They can collaborate. They can, okay, can we bring this threshold at which level we have to pay? Can we bring this up? And now systems like water and salt, and a membrane, which is also an energy system, can be built into the houses, so you get more diverse energy. The point at which you have to pay becomes later and later, and the system gets more resilient. But what you're then not building is not a business, it's a commons. And because the big number of solutions, you're creating an ecosystem towards abundance. And this is the kind of thinking we bring the teams in before the start of the hackathon. So in 2018, we had our first hackathon with Odyssey, who are going to give a presentation at the end today. What we said is, okay, we want a track that is non-commercial. Everything is open source. We want the people to follow their intrinsic motivation. And out there came the winners, Team Praia. And what they built was a solution where they streamed tokens in a blockchain solution where every node was basically a drone. And basically creating a hive mind on the blockchain. And the solution, how they pitched it was, imagine that a guy gets lost in the forest. The drones will identify where he is and point his way out. But of course, their grand narrative was very much bigger. They say, we live on a planet where we watch the world with satellites. So that means that if there is a stream of refugee, we can identify him. So what if we create a solution to help them? Because in the world of today, a disaster means that the Red Cross or any other organization is going to spend 500 million on a refugee camp. And after the disaster, the money is gone. What if you start to rethink such solutions and you create this hive mind that would be able to fly towards the place where the refugee camp is needed, build it, and break it down and reuse it afterwards? So what they were showing us was a new way to look at cities. And that, for a great company as us, was very inspiring, because what they basically were telling is that you can build a city for people on an infrastructure of almost nothing. And then the people start to live there. That's a concept we already know from the festival world. It's built on an infrastructure of almost nothing. They built the city there. And then after 5 days, you take it away. Then you have the concept of moving cities. And if you talk to the military, they're also thinking about it. They're also moving cities. But now you're talking about houses that if you change anything like in the house here, it doesn't become waste. So what if the people who are intrinsically motivated to change the world mature this concept of festivals as moving cities. Imagine in 10 years going to the cities of London and Paris and asking for the future plans and ask them, but does your city move? Because ours does. And then you get this feeling of disruption that is happening within the Nature 2.0 community. The winners, Team Kraya, the idea were so revolutionary that they published together with MIT a paper about their solution. Also this year, we had our own track, our Nature 2.0 track, at the hackathon. And as I said, we had the biggest pension funds of the Netherlands sending a team because they have a big problem. We are researching our health. And as soon as we find something that lets us live 20, 30 years longer, all the pension funds of the world have a problem because they cannot get more money in. And they cannot explain to us that we should live in poverty. So what if they start rethinking the system? They come up with a solution. Okay, what if there is no waste? Because we know this from our childhood, as we played with Lego. Everything we built was made of Lego, and if we stopped building it, we took the Lego blocks and threw them into our box, and then we started building again. This is not something which is not technologically possible. It's just not in our current mindset. The people of Google TensorFlow, together with Dr. Michael Zarkum, worked on a system called SourceGrid. SourceGrid is, okay, how can I see who contributes to what? Who is valuable contributor? But those people are so intelligent that they are working out a kind of algorithm that would show if a team is in flow or not in flow. Because for them a problem is they have in their head what they want to build and they want to start building, and there are all those people who want to help them and they want to show, no, we are in flow, we don't need any help, but they know they can't explain it to the people. So you see all those building blocks coming together. And what was an incredible insight, although the teams were working on such different solutions, they are all working on the same comments. We had a big problem in the acceleration because our winners didn't want to leave the other teams because they were doing it together. Those are the kind of comments we build. So it's identifying, okay, what do we need for a working solution? You build this, you build this, you build this. And this is how they were building their all narratives. They weren't competitioners. The winners created a system of decentralized orchestration. They hacked Ethereum, they hacked Kubernetes, and at the moment of pitch they had 60,000 agents with Ethereum wallets working. I believe 72 CPU cores, 100 gigabyte of transaction live. So it was not shareware, they had it live. Because they think, okay, these kind of decentralized solutions that we are now developing shouldn't be confined to any place. So there shouldn't be one kind of entity, if it's Amazon with the services, if it's Google with their hardware, no single entity should be controlled, so we need movable solutions. And to already come so far in 2 years that we have those kind of concepts also on critical infrastructure is incredible. So I'm standing here, hoping for my last, yeah, there it is. If you want to become a millionaire, you are alone. If you want to save the world, you have an incredible amount of friends. So friends, I think it is time to start building some crazy shit to change the world. Thank you. How is the timing? Is there time for questions or not? Yeah, please. Yeah.
We are coming more from the sector of social science, citizen science, and there's like the same dynamic.
Yeah.
Blend this in. I can also recommend you to go more where you come from in your country. There is a mindset we are tapping in, and also like we would love to tap into it, what your activities are. But it's like regarding this, what you shared, the use cases. What other use cases you also referred to, where you said like that you've been learning from the dynamics that you saw there?
Yeah. Well. Of course, one important dynamic is I work for one of the most conservative companies in the Netherlands. We are critical infrastructure. And I'm talking about blockchain and AI and non-moneyless systems. So there's a lot of lessons to be learned. Okay, how do you take a very conservative entity like this onto the road? It's not by telling all the crazy shit I'm sharing here, because they would go mad. But I can show you the videos of how we enthusiased our CEO, and how with glowing eyes they are saying, okay, we have to change the world. And we now understand through our workshops that nobody knows the future. And if we are exploring, of course there will be a lot of crazy ideas, but it's not about the crazy answers. It is about the questions that are never asked. But every time you ask a question that is never asked or long have been forgotten, you see a part of the world where nobody is looking. And this is how you surpass the god of thunder, Donar. Because every time there is this big, you can go back to the old. Or say, no, no, this is just a narrative we are believing in, and there is room for change. Other question?
So those activities is only in the Netherlands, or are you planning to, let's say, export the idea or the event to other countries and cities?
The Odyssey Hackathon, because we are a track of the Odyssey Hackathon, is sitting there. She's going to give the final keynote.
Hello, Victoria.
So, stay here. We are part of the hackathon, but we are also part of the innovation contests of the universities. So everywhere we can connect to people who are intrinsically motivated, who are purpose-driven, we come with all the things that are already built, because it's all open source. The teams that join us can use the items that are built by the last teams and start exploring the next generation. We have a meetup in Amsterdam and in Berlin, but we live stream everything and we record everything. We have a website where all the teams or entities who like what Nature 2.0 pitch, you can find it on Nature 2.000. And there you find test nets, resources, all kind of elements. We also did, when Girls of Singularity Net is here, we did a business development deep dive and a technical deep dive. You can also find it there. But also on how to pitch these kind of solutions, because what you also saw was that storytelling is very important if you want to take people into a new narrative. So we have John Talbot, who is a famous TEDx coach in the Netherlands, and he has given a lecture of 1.5 hours on how you can tell a story that is not a commercial pitch, but feels more like a Star Trek movie, so that you really entice the people, because you need their support to create this global movement. Thank you.
would like to introduce the panel we have today, starting off with Neal. He's the co-founder of Project Freedom. Ken, who has a solution which is already up and running, which can help tracking from Caleo. Louis from Nicosia Capital, and our partners in our venture, basically, which is NHP, Francesco. So essentially, I would like to introduce the concept of what we're trying to do with Project Freedom, essentially. So we're trying to build partnerships and collaboration with other organizations who have already built-in solutions, and we connect them together to create a whole ecosystems. Perhaps we can start off with Louis, give us a bit of philosophy behind social impact and that sort of thing. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, my name's Louis, and I have the beginnings of what I refer to as an incubator agency. The idea being that we can I can help people grow ecosystems around these powerful concepts that we're all very excited about that relate to this technology. I've delved pretty deep into the philosophy behind this, because for me, everyone's very excited about this technology, but maybe we lack some of the concepts that we need to be able to realize opportunity and create. And in talking to Chris and Neal and Francesco, who are based here in Malta, it's been good to have these kind of discussions around waste and potentially turning that into resource. What I think's fascinating about this technology is that we can measure things we previously were not able to measure, and in being able to do that, we can potentially assign value to things and incentivize people to get those things, and maybe monitor the evolution of those things into products, and maybe tell very interesting stories about the process of bringing things to production. So these are some of the things that I'm interested in, and the impact that that's going to have on branding and design and storytelling. And I think this is something that established companies are all considerate of, this authenticity component. And I think this technology is very powerful in relationship to that.
Thank you, Louis. So essentially, just to give you some background about the approach that we're taking with Project Freedom, and in January we went to India, basically, and we visited a number of we tried to approach the 3.7 billion bank. So we tried to focus on our energy towards meeting the poorest of the poor, and we asked them questions. We didn't know what are the issues. We can't assume that from the West we actually have a solution, or we know what's happening in these territories. And across all India, the same one factor came out, is the factor of sanitation and the appalling condition of these settlements. The sheer scale of plastic waste is on another dimension. And by pure chance, we met NHP and Francesco, and we're partnering now so we can give value to this enormous problem of plastic, basically. So I would like to introduce Francesco. Perhaps you can give us some insight into the circular economy and his view on that aspect.
Yep. So yes, we at Now Here's Plastic, we believe that the circular economy is the way forward towards sustainable models that have a positive impact on our economy, but on our Earth more than anything. We are young, and we want to we want our kids to live in this beautiful world as we can see it, and even make it even better. Yeah, circular economy basically shifting those linear model as we know today that goes from fossil fuel resources, manufacturing, sales of good use, but that get lost into waste at the end and is left over. So we're going to start from that leftover, from that waste, and this will be the beginning of the journey of our products. that will our models are based on four pillars, which are recycling, processing, and remanufacturing, to then redistribute and give a longer life cycle of the raw material that was previously used. So here we're talking about the plastic. So we're gonna, in few words, what we are trying to achieve this year is to collect the plastic, and after having processed it, to 3D printed it into furniture for public spaces, and be able to track all those collected items for the users to see and be aware of the value that the plastic have. And we are 100% sure that when people will see what this small bottle of plastic can become, they will think twice before throwing it out in the trash and not recycling it.
Thank you. I mean, the sheer scale of this is beyond description. One figure that came to us is that the world produces about 7 billion plastic bottles per day, which is on another scale. Not only apparently a very small percentage of that gets recycled, and most of it ends up in the oceans. We have a huge problem in the world of the garbage patch, which is 6,000 times Malta, basically. 7 times as big as Spain. This is a huge global problem. And what the idea we have is that we would like to focus on these cross-border, extra-jurisdictional problems, and hopefully we can seek solutions and create value and create business out of enterprise, out of finding solutions. I would like to introduce Neal, who is the co-founder of Project Freedom, and he can give you a more detailed account on how we're trying to approach this, with regards to our approach, basically. Yeah, Neal.
So I'd like to share something with you before I actually jump into our topic. I would like to share why I'm actually sitting here today, and why are we working towards a sustainable future. I've been traveling for a number of years now, and I've met with a different number of communities, and I've lived with people from all walks of life. And what I see is that the effect of the linear economy has given us a lot of problems in our world. I can do like this, and every time you see my finger move, there's a person dying of starvation, a person dying of improper care, healthcare. They have no money. So this is really a pressing issue we have in our world today. And experiencing the lives of these people with them, because I've lived with tribal people, I've lived with ecological communities, I've lived, with everybody here in society, and I see that we're all, reaching this point where we cannot just sit idle and do nothing about the situation in this world. So in our field work in India, we went to talk to a number of communities, and basically these guys are living below the poverty line. You can imagine that a 15-hour workday is producing barely enough food for these families to eat. So, why are we working towards a circular economy? Because a linear economy is introducing an object and then it's just throwing it away. A circular economy gets that object and maximizes its value. So you have the product comes into the cycle, and we use it and use it and use it again. This is the way nature works. There's no waste. So talking to these people, we found out that sanitation is a really massive issue in India. And it's a massive issue in other parts of the world, in Southeast Asia and Africa and South America. It's happening in Europe as well, but we just don't see it. It's happening in America. And, you know, we decided we want to deal with this issue somehow. So we said we're going to launch a campaign. We're going to go and clean up these colonies, which are called such. They're actually slums. And the sanitation condition there is just, you know, it's on another level. Hearing about it and seeing pictures of it is one thing, but when you actually go and you're walking in the streets and you're walking in the sludge, you're walking amongst piles of trash, you know, there's piles of trash bigger than this room, and people are living right next to it. It's a very different experience. So, again, coming back to the point where why do we want sustainability? Because we want to create a fair life for everybody. We are all, I believe that we are all interconnected. You know, we live on the same planet, and the people suffering on the other part of the world have an impact on us as well. You know, if you take the human body, for example, if I have a disease in my leg, it's going to affect me in the head, it's going to affect me in the arms. So, taking the world from the same approach, we have the same issue, where our linear economy has created problems in certain parts of the world, which is affecting the rest of us. And this is why we want to clean up. This is why we want to turn all this plastic waste into a resource again, because there's potential for us to actually live in a sustainable world. And it's just learning how to use these resources and turn them into something else where it can be reintroduced into our system and used again as a product.
Thank you, Neal. I would like to introduce Ken, who has already a built solution to actually track this sort of thing. Maybe, Ken, you can give us a bit of background on what Carrillo and what you're doing. You're very active in Africa and all over the world. Ken.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Wow, it's quite loud. I'll go a little bit further away. Yeah, so basically I think there's two ways to address it, from obviously a top-down approach and a bottom-up approach. So in terms of the top-down approach, I had the opportunity of spending time with people such as Paul Kagame, who's the president of Rwanda. And I don't know, has anyone been to Rwanda before? Okay, amazing. So obviously the capital of Rwanda is Kigali. They've actually banned all plastic bags. So if you arrive into the city carrying a plastic bag, walking on the streets, the police will give you an on-the-spot fine. So Kigali is now the cleanest city in Africa. So it's showing that cities, countries are now starting to take action in terms of eradicating and trying to provide this value. So that's from a more of a top-down approach. From a bottom-up approach, I think it's extremely important, irrespective of one's influence, is that we can all do things, yes? It's all about our ideas, and we can be able to turn this into solutions. So what we're doing at Carrillo effectively is essentially, we can see there's a massive increase in the e-commerce purchases. Today, 10% of all retail global sales is done online. Within the next 10 years, it's going to be probably about 20 to 25%, which is $5 trillion. But what tends to happen is with a lot of merchants, when you go on to a merchant and you see a product and it says plastic-free or vegan or organic, how do you really know whether that's the truth? It's just pure text. So one needs to be more accountable and really put these merchants and say, okay, show us the proof. So what we've basically done is built a product which will enable the merchant to be able to offer it to suppliers. Let's say a farmer in Peru producing coffee beans, to be able to upload all the significant data about their GPS location, about how they harvest the goods, to any regulations or certificates they have. And then this is part of a QR code. The merchant will upload this QR code onto their platform. So as a consumer, when you want to make a purchase of, let's say, vegan or organic shampoo, for example, you can be able to then just scan the QR code, and it'll take you back in history in terms of where it's come from. So the aim is about providing the transparency and traceability, and this is what blockchain's provided. And this can also be used as a use case for plastic, for various aspects. So what we're trying to do is really look from a point of how one can take action. And for us, our mission is not looking at it as just a company, but how we collectively can be able to put our hands together and how we can be able to grow and build this mission. So it starts today.
Thank you very much. That was a good one. Maybe I can sort of pass on maybe some comments, Neal, about the campaign we're trying to run in India. So this is maybe Neal will give you an introduction to that.
So taking these ideas and bringing them all together, you know, we have the why are we doing social impact and why do we want a circular economy and what is the technology behind the circular economy. We've just recently launched a campaign to create use cases of bringing a circular economy into action. And what we've done, you know, we've decided to actually go and clean up these places. We've targeted a number of colonies in India. We're probably going to go there later in the year, get our hands dirty, and just clean up the place. And what that can do is bring certain value back to the people, because the plastic collected can then, through the help of NHP, for example, be converted into a resource, and that resource can be brought back into our marketplace, so we can produce furniture, we can produce certain types of goods, reutilizing that plastic and minimizing the impact it has in a negative way. And we can track this movement of goods through our blockchain technology. So, you know, this is just one use case where we can actually create a circular economy in our society.
Thank you. Louis, maybe you could give us your comments on this.
Yeah, just to build off of the last two comments there, I think one thing I took from the previous talk is that there is this significant opportunity to do things differently. And with regards to this like bottom-up approach, in a way that's kind of us going off into the unknown. You know, this hasn't been done before, so we're trying new things. But one thing I would say, and one thing I talk to people a lot about, is that, you know, prior to the internet, there was probably this assumption that what we couldn't measure didn't amount to much. But the internet taught us that what we previously couldn't measure actually amounted to a heck of a lot. And we're faced with the next evolution of the internet, so we're going to be measuring new things, and the fact of the matter is we are going to measure a lot. So I would say that there's this marvelous opportunity to do things differently, and the impact of doing things differently is going to be significant, which I think is an important thing to remind ourselves of if we kind of lose confidence in the fact that this can work, because the fact of the matter is that maybe the top down is going to more be considerate of the things that they can measure in order to justify certain decisions. So I think it's a marvelous opportunity for creativity, for the human spirit to actually reimagine the way we approach things, for those things to have a positive impact and solve real world problems. And I personally feel that this is the way we get to a circular economy. It's through this way of approaching things, because we've been enabled with amazing tools for coordination, and this is what these protocols are. They're coordination protocols, ways to align economic incentive, ways to eliminate waste, not just in terms of physical, but also material, but also immaterial, in the sense that we can benefit from much greater efficiencies and less waste of energy. So that's what I would add to that.
You made an interesting point about measuring impact here. And I would like to add on top of that, we can measure the impact of the movement of goods and services, but how do we measure human impact as well? So, actually being on the ground in India, we had one experience where we met one boy and his family. His name was Sayyid Khan. His father came up to us and said, listen, my son has a heart condition, and can you help us out? So he said, definitely, we're here to help you guys with whatever you need. And we went, we left this colony, and the next place we went to, coincidentally, we met with somebody who had good contacts with hospitals and with doctors. So we're thinking, this is fantastic, we can help this boy out. So we got the documents needed from the boy about his heart condition. We set up the meeting with the doctors, and we got our contacts back in this colony to tell him, we just need to get you to Delhi, and you can meet the doctor, and we can help you out. And when we got that message passed, we got a reply, this boy has just died. And that was really, it really left an impact on me. So again, coming back to this point of why do we need this circular economy? Why do we need this sustainability movement to actually really create an impact in this world? For me, it's because I've met these people and I've seen what they go through. So it's become, a personal mission for me to actually go and see how I can create and help these people improve their lives. And the circular economy, this movement of waste back to a resource, is one really strong point for all of us, where we can work together and make a difference in these people's lives.
Yes, I would like to conclude. Basically, what's happening here is that the problem of plastic waste and the poor sanitation condition, essentially, this is entering the food chain, and we have kids now being born with heart defects, like this kid that died of 13. That's something we never imagined. Doesn't appear too much in the West, at least from my perspective. So this, if somebody, just I would like to appeal, if there are somebody who wants to kind of help us out with this, you can go on our website and contribute. We're also always accessible for resources, building partnerships to to ensure that people are not dying out of sanitation conditions. This is something we've solved centuries ago in the West. So, but we still have a large portion of society's portion of those 3.7 billion people who are living in these extreme poor conditions. Hopefully, we can change that.
Yeah. Is everyone still breathing, or is it really? Should we do the traditional stand up and? Yeah, come. Let's just do it. Yeah. Well, be social. It's the team.
Wow. Bet you didn't see that, Karen.
No, half of the room is leaving. Hey, great to be here together. We want to have a bit of an interactive time, to talk a bit more about empowerment in general. And we, as the team here, already had quite a substantial debate about it, because we want to group it, and so many things came up to say, well, what do we mean with empowerment even? And it's applicable. I think it will be fun to hear from people also a little bit from you guys. What is your vision on that? Very quickly. So my name is Martijn Hekman. I'm Dutch, I'm working a lot with humanitarian programs, and I'm trying to really use the blockchain to make it cheaper, more efficient. That's my journey of life to look for. And then I go to my neighbor, Fraser. Maybe you tell a bit about yourself.
Yeah, on the social impact side of things, we're trying to build a funding mechanism for activism, essentially, an unstoppable funding mechanism that would help empower the people to drive the change at the pace we need to, and that means being able to stand up to corporates, and in some cases to governments, to really make them do what's needed.
Hi, my name is Liliana Carrillo, and I contribute mostly to our society, working with kids and with technology. So I do both.
I'm Claude Ebejer. I'm a local. Welcome to Malta. Again, I like to call it the belly button of the world, where major cultures intercept and where we can all come together and adapt and share and care. I lead an NGO together with my friends. We believe that we can cultivate proaction through interest. We believe that power is the general capacity to act, and that's why we named our NGO ACT.
Hi, I'm Duncan Murray. I'm the MD of Dust Aid, which is an entity that collects cryptocurrency from exchanges and platforms, sweeps up very small amounts, aggregates it together with a lot of others, and then gives it out to on a blockchain solution to small projects globally.
Thanks. Yeah. I like actually try to keep it short, but can people? I'm asking now in the light of being on the summit, of course, because otherwise we drift off too far. Can some people say in a couple of words how you achieve or think about empowerment using blockchain? What is something that comes to mind from your side?
In our case, what we try to do is make it easier for people to participate. So by making it easier, an automated way, and a transparent way. What we have seen is that the RuPaul action has been very low lately because of the very low level of trust. So what blockchain can bring is an additional level of trust and get again the sense of community happening.
Exactly.
So participation for you, to enable participation. Any other word? Any other suggestion? Oh, yeah. Sorry. Incentive. Can you explain what you mean with that? Why would be how you use that or envision that?
I guess mobilizing people to act towards especially social goals, you have to give them a reason why to do this. And I think it's especially important when you don't have much, right? When you don't have money, don't have access to education, don't have access to energy or whatever. Why are you going to care about the environment? Why are you going to care about the life around you? So you got to get a motivation, you got to get an incentive, you got to get a reward. I think that's really important when you look at empowerment, perhaps.
Okay.
So.
Maybe Duncan, Fraser, because you say activism,
Yeah.
Do you feel the same? Do you need to be incentivized to?
Yeah, I mean, both are great points, right? Gosh, we're in such a, it's such a dire time, isn't it, when you have David Attenborough saying, look, we're facing the end of civilization here, unless we move. And the motivation for people, I mean, people who don't feel empowered, how do they rise up? Do they think we can even change things? These are incredible times.
So basically, I come from France, and I guess you all heard about a great mobilization.
You rise up all the time.
Exactly. So at least we have that, this yellow vest. Yeah. But if you hear what they say, it all started because of the carbon tax on oil prices, right? Because the price was too much. So everybody is aware of the environment and climate change. But at a point, what they're saying is, okay, look, you know, climate is great, but it's not our priority. You know, we want purchase power, we want money, we don't want to pay high taxes. I think that's a big issue when we talk about top down, bottom up. You want to move the people, but what is their priority to act? You know, is climate really the priority? We all care about climate, but is it really the thing that motivates you when you wake up? You know.
For me to add is, for me, 3 things for empowerment. The first of one is information. So information is out there, but you have to aggregate it and to really make it understandable for everyone. The second one is tools. So if I have the information and I see the problem, so how can I act? So there has to be proper tools for that. And the third one is, I think, resources. So empowerment doesn't matter if I don't have resources for that, which means in a financial way or another way, I don't know.
Thanks. On the right side, anyone? The left side is winning so far.
Sorry, just for everybody to wake up. Capacity building through education, investment in local initiatives to help people to invest in their businesses, potentially, and yeah, participation. Giving people that connectivity and the ability to know that they're part of a bigger whole, that they're not isolated.
I think those are all great points. I think you use the word trust. All of that, you know, incentives, participation. The blockchain adds an element of trust that potentially wasn't there before. Whether that's trust in a government, and it's 2 ways. You know, there's voting, there's all sorts of benefits, but it works both ways. The people giving out aid, helping out social causes, can actually get a level of trust that's now going to where it's supposed to be, helping out where it is. So I think trust is for me personally, one of the most important words.
Resilience building. For me, yeah, I actually have a question for the audience. Who thinks that empowerment is related to education? Can you raise your hand? Just raise your hand.
Can I say
Okay. Now, can you raise your hand if empowerment is related to money? Okay. Can you raise your hand if if empowerment is related to human rights?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, actually, what I just want to say is that empowerment means something completely different for every individual. Like for me, for example, is to have the right and of my voice, to use my voice and to decide, right? For other people, it can be identity. There is so many people in the world without identity that there we could solve problems, right? It could be with blockchain, it could be with other tools, because at the end, technology is just a tool, right? It could be for education. Okay, how many people are uneducated or are missing some awareness of taking care of our world, right? So it's like going center in what are the needs for our for our communities and for ourselves. And now we have an awareness here, and it's that we want to listen to someone.
Yes. I guess empowerment is, ideally for me, it would be that you can empower a person to believe that this person is much more capable of doing anything than they believe in themselves. And like in general, is really needed because even some very powerful people, they underestimate their potential. And like if another human being just really believe in you and see something in you that you don't see, that's like another planet. I don't know, like it's so empowering others.
I would like to provide, basically as a social scientist, I have always been interested in defining big words such as power and freedom. And while we're speaking about empowerment, so I think it's good to put some Game of Thrones riddle in the rooms. So once there was a conversation, I don't know for the people who watch the show, for those who don't, it's new then, it's good. So in a room sit 3 great men, a king, a priest, a high priest, and a rich man with his gold. Between them stands a common cell sword. The king tells the common cell sword to kill the other two, as he's his lawful leader. The rich guy tells him to kill the other two, and all the gold shall be his. And the priest tells him, kill the other two, as I command you in the name of the gods. Who lives, who dies? Power resides where men believe it resides. It's a trick. But then I continued to investigate. So what is power? Power is the general capacity to act. If I go and ask a girl out, I am gaining courage to go and ask her out. And I'm showing an element of power because I exercise my energy to go and actually ask. However, she can say no. What does that make me then? Powerful or powerless? So power is the general capacity to act, but not only. It is the right to act given by the people on whom power is exercised upon. So it's not only about action, but it's also about consensus. Now, just to finish, if the people don't have the right or don't have the opportunity to stand up, to speak up, then the power balance is completely not balanced. It's completely. And then there is where I get to the definition of freedom. Freedom is the general capacity to act. Oh, no, sorry. Freedom is as choice. Freedom is as choice. It is a universal human potential. And it does not differ in societies, regardless of cultural traditions. It differs only how much we allow for that potential to develop. So I think that empowerment is allowing freedom to be exercised through choice, basically. And blockchain is about that. It's about enabling. It's about transparency. It's about allowing choice to build up trust, and this trust would allow resilience building. So basically,
yeah,
that's my opinion.
Thank you. Yeah, brilliant. I mean, and to get on to blockchain again, I think our project we've been building with developers for over 2 years now in these mechanisms, and I think one of the drivers, one of the inspiring things was the surety that blockchain brings. If we manage to create this instrument or this tool that citizens, they know if they back it and if they use it, they can't be stopped. That kind of surety that there will be success if we go this way. Only blockchain can do that. Pre-blockchain, that didn't exist. Your bank can be seized and your funds taken. Your company can have an injunction against it and you can be stopped. But blockchain has created an opportunity to do things that actually can't be stopped. It's really, really interesting.
But to tag along that one, I hear only praise, of course. We all praise blockchain. Are there also concerns with people how blockchain could maybe block empowerment of people?
I'm very concerned.
Oh, well.
And I'm
No,
here.
you spoke already. No, you had your time. But I'd like to hear some critical, where should we maybe be concerned? Where?
One in the back there.
Yes.
I was interested to hear more about each of your successes in implementing blockchain for social impact. What things did you have to face? What trials did you have to overcome? And what were your failures as you implemented blockchain for social impact?
Okay, let's give 1 second. Let's finish maybe you had concern. I'd like to hear from you.
Thank you.
And there was another concern.
Well, my concern is that, we will come back to you. My concern is that we put a lot of emphasis on trust. We trust something because it's built on the blockchain. We trust because there is transparency. We trust because it's blockchain, right? Where are we actually as humans living our sense of trust? Isn't it more important that we as humans actually start to trust more and work more on ourselves? For me, technology is just a tool.
Okay.
And that's it.
Thanks.
A tool.
Thank you.
but tools can facilitate trust. Because it can create evidence of like a remit, or I don't know, it's like a CV, you know, where the person is coming from. So if you share the same, if you share his ideals, it's better for you to trust him. I don't know. Trust comes from culture. Trust comes from sharing honestly. But I think through blockchain, it was overinflated as a concept. My issue with blockchain is as working with grassroots movements, not a lot of people use it. That is the biggest barrier. That
Have you implemented a successful social impact project on the blockchain?
Yeah, sir. I think this is a big topic. We have to. Maybe we can talk afterwards because I think you tried to signal that we have to. 5 minutes. Oh, we have 5 minutes. Who wants to go first? No, you. No,
yeah,
you
so
go. Yeah.
the quick answer to that is yes. In terms of challenges, I would say challenges in the developed world are around actually trust around blockchain in general. It's very tied into cryptocurrency that has a bad press. A lot of people don't want to back it. You know, you talk to people about donating it. For example, you can't get a bank account in the UK if you're dealing crypto. So I'd say from that side of it, that's a challenge. In terms of the other side, in terms of the beneficiaries, the challenges have been around. It's completely the opposite. They're very keen to adopt new technology. They see the potentials. Obviously, there are pros and cons of blockchain. I won't go into that now, but I see blockchain as part of an overall solution. People say blockchain solves everything. It doesn't. It's just one aspect. I think you need to include elements of AI, big data, other enhancements on a platform. We have a blockchain social good project running right now in Romania, which gives out toy boxes and presents at Christmas to 1,000 children in Romania. So that is working. We are raising money for that through Dust Aid. And in the developing world, the challenges are around not many people have wallets, not many people know what blockchain is, but they're trying to develop it, and the resourcing is obviously a huge challenge. But the last mile, and I think one of the projects on before is dealing with that, or in fact your 180 project's dealing with that. The last mile is the biggest challenge, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, you know, to speak to the gentleman's point and not to promote. I mean, it's relatively easy to build a dApp that works. Adoption, of course, is the challenge for all of blockchain and cryptocurrency, right? And the last mile is fascinating. That's the front line of it. And I know of projects in, for example, Nigeria and Africa working with VSLA groups. Some of you will be familiar. Mostly women in groups that lend their money together, put it in a tin box, and then use it to lend. And I have colleagues and friends who are building applications on Stellar blockchain, which allow these groups to put this onto what is a side chain of Stellar, and they're integrating with microfinance providers. I mean, it's really interesting because it's almost like the final mile is where it could actually happen, the adoption, you know, because banks can't actually reach those people because they're, like, the cost of this side chain on Stellar is something like 1/10 of the cost of mobile money to transact. So that's where it's happening, and it is happening, you know.
Well, thanks so much. I think we have to end it here. Thanks for your participation. Short but sweet, I hope. And enjoy the next session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm telling you something about Free Private City, a new concept. You can read it here, making governance compete for you. Reality is the exact opposite. Governments do with us what they want, especially in the developing world. And here's a new idea. But first of all, let me tell you why Western democracies are not the end of history. Imagine you had to conduct a contract and your counterparty would say, I'm going to decide what services I provide, and I'm also going to decide what the price will be. Not a good deal. Or it's like a car seller saying, okay, you can buy a car, but I decide what car, I decide what model, what features, and I decide what price. Nobody would conduct such a contract, right? But this is exactly happening to all of us with the so-called social contract. The problem with the social contract is that we are not on equal footing with the other side. The other side, which is the government, is not only constantly changing the contract, they are also making all the rules. And that is especially true in the developing world, where you can, no matter if it's a dictator or a democratically elected government, they just, once they are in power, do what they want. They control the courts, they have all the administration, and that means the people are not in charge, right? You are and they are not in charge of their lives, and they can't do anything about it. Maybe they're allowed to vote every 4 or 5 years, and then they do not know if the guy they are voting for isn't doing the same things as before. And that is a problem. And that is even such a big problem that it's one of the biggest, I would say, root of evils that we have in today's world. You are not in charge of your life. And the question now is, what can we do about it? And here's an idea. It's called Free Private City. And the idea is that what everybody needs in all countries of the world, not only in Monaco, as I have here is the picture, is the protection of life, liberty, and property. Be it in Africa, be it in Asia, be it in Europe. And now imagine a private government service provider is guaranteeing you that. And you pay a fixed amount per year. There's a contract where your rights and duties are clearly laid down, and you only have to participate if you like those rights and duties, and if you can pay the amount, if you like the amount, which will be, just to give you an idea, will be not much. It's about $1,000 a year. In the developing world, it's something between $250 and $500 a year. That is enough to provide for the basis of a state, right? That is enough. And I would say 80% of the population of the world can afford that, without being bullied around by police and governments and people who think they're in charge. And again, it's 100% voluntary. If you don't like the rules, if you don't like that model, don't go there. So this is also a big difference to what we have today, because wherever you are, it's not voluntary. The only thing you can do, you can leave sometimes, but often that is not possible. And the rules, even if you agree to the rules in your country, they might change after the next election. And they might change in a way that is completely turning around the whole story, the whole game. And you have made investments, people have started small businesses. And then new guy is coming into power and they are out of business. So what is the big advantage of making this a private city? A lot of people think, oh, private is a bad thing and public is a good thing. I say it's a market of living together, no matter who is in charge. If you demand something from your politician, and the politician is, for example, you demand anti-market, anti-capitalist politics, and the politician is delivering that, this is a market result, right? You may not want that, but it's a market result. Now, if the guy who is in charge has own skin in the game, that means he is doing this as a business. He says, okay, I'm going to provide that private city as a service business. It's a governance service business. And if the guy is misbehaving or is delivering a bad service, then he's going out of business. And his reputation is damaged. He will probably become insolvent and lose all his money. So he has skin in the game and therefore is much better incentivized than a politician who might destroy a whole country, who might make such big mistakes that the whole population has to suffer from years and years to come, and they're losing billions of dollars. And the worst thing, the very worst thing that normally happens to such politicians is they are voted out of power with the full pension. That's the worst thing that can happen to them. That is a very, very bad incentive system. And that is one of the reasons why so many countries in the world are not working well. because they don't have skin in the game and nothing can happen. They can do basically whatever they want. Well, sometimes they are overthrown and killed, but you know that is very, very rarely happening. So there's an economic need in a private city, private governance model for satisfied customers. And the other thing is important. There's no forum for people to impose their will upon others, which is also one of the big issues we have. In many countries, a lot of interest groups, be it rich or be it political well-organized groups, are trying to infiltrate the parliament and the government to make their ideas law. I'm working in such countries, and I can tell you there are countries which are very poor but and have a high tax rate, but somehow all rich people do not pay taxes. They have somehow managed, and it's even illegal, they have somehow managed to implement some laws that have loopholes for them. So and if there is no such thing, but you have only one contract with the provider, there's no forum where they can change the rules to their advantage. It's just not existing. There's only, everybody has a contract with the provider and the others cannot change that. So you can rely on that. And that is a very, very big advantage, because it's basically something we already know from our daily living, right? We have subscribed to this conference. We have maybe booked a room in the hotel. We knew in advance what would be the price and what the service. So this is no way that the hotel is telling me, by the way, you pay double the price because we put you an extra minibar in your room. I said, wait a minute, that's not what I ordered. I'm not going to pay that. And now imagine you had that same situation, that same legal standing with your state or your state service provider. They cannot just say, oh, by the way, we are making a military intervention in another country and you have to pay extra for that because it's so expensive. And you said, that's not what I signed up for, right? And that is something where if you have to create something new, and there's a reason why Dubai is here on that picture, they have basically done that. I mean, Dubai might not be the ideal world, but the original idea is we offer you something. You might like it or not. And then you come and do business and express yourself and guide yourself, and that is working, obviously. It's working. Even without democracy, it's working. So this kind of model that you have a private governance provider who has just basically providing the framework of security, independent dispute resolution, stability, and within that framework, people can flourish. Without police, without politicians, without interest groups that say, well, you have to behave in this and that way, and we need your money, and you have to pay for this and that, and by the way, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that. Mostly people are not allowed to do certain things because interest groups are not interested that they do it. If there is, for example, somebody in a country that has already a kind of a monopoly for business, for a certain business, be it a garbage disposal or taxi, he will definitely try to influence the government that they change the law so that no new garbage disposal or taxi companies are coming in. And that is happening every day in nearly every country. And so that's one of the reasons why it's not getting better. There are two big entrenched interest groups in those countries. So if you come now and say, well, let's start from scratch, everybody has a contract, everybody's starting from zero, and everybody pays the same for a service they know about, then it might be a totally different story. Because you have then certainly you have legal certainty, right? Then you would get guaranteed security from, I mean, that's basically what you pay for, right? If you pay $1,000 a year for security, well, then you should get security. And if you are robbed or it's broken into your apartment, then you come to the service provider and say, hey, wait a minute. I paid $1,000 and they broke into my apartment. I want damages. Rightly so. That's normally the case if the service contract was not fulfilled. Well, go to the state and say, well, they robbed me, bad luck, right? Okay, police is taking up your case and nothing happens. That's the difference. That's a big difference. And of course, more freedom for since the rules are the same for all, there are no privileges, and there's limitless innovation possible, right? You can do as you please as long as you do not harm others, of course. And there's no politics. I think politics is part of the problem and not part of the solution. Because politics is always it's always the will of a certain group of people who want to impose that will on all of us. But people are different. And what we all want is to live in peace. That's the only thing we all want. From there on, we are totally different, have totally different ideas. What to do, how to save the world, what our activities may be. And the result of such a system would be long-term stability and prosperity. I mean, here are many young people in that conference. You cannot even start a pension plan because you do not know what will be the rules for that in 2 years now. Constantly changing. You cannot establish a blockchain business because in most countries the rules are changing every year. And maybe what you can do today is illegal tomorrow because people say, oh, blockchain is crypto and crypto is tax evasion. Bad luck for your business, right? And that's happening all over the place all the time. And that's why so many blockchain and crypto related companies are approaching me. I'm coming to the end. Is this just an idea? No. The first project to be announced soon, I can tell you in which country it's going to happen. So the country is Honduras in Central America. And Honduras is a country that has a lot of crime, a lot of corruption, and a very inefficient administration. You cannot even send a letter from town A to town B because it's going to be stolen. So these people say, okay, we don't think we can do much about it. We try to establish a new area where we try to get something like a new Hong Kong up and running. And the consortium my company is part of has got the first permit in this country to make this happen. It's a public-private partnership, so it's not a real free private city, it's more a hybrid model. But this is social impact investing at its best. We are creating a framework where mostly the local people can flourish because all the things that they are suffering from, they would be erased and we would start from scratch with international best practices, with judges from Australia and the US, with reputable security firms from Western countries, which are not corrupt. If they were corrupt, they would damage their business. So that is the idea, and the Hondurans are supporting that, and this is a new era that is beginning, and competitive governance becomes a reality, and I think that other Latin American countries will look at that model and will see if they like it, they probably will establish something like that. And I encourage you, if you say, well, maybe, maybe not. Have a look. Well, there's a book explaining everything in certain languages, different languages, but there's also a website, it's called freeprivatecities.com, and there's a newsletter only coming every 3 months or so, explaining what's going on, what's happening. And you might say, well, maybe I like some of Tito's ideas, but others not. Well, start your own, right? This is for competitive governance. It's not I know it best and my model is the greatest. It's about competition. We need more competition in the market of living together. Thank you very much.
Oh yeah, so it's just gonna be, it's just the three of us, I think. Yeah, cool. So, hi, I guess I'll start off with introducing all of us. So I'm Beth McCarthy from Starfish Network and Dow Incubator.
works. My name is Francesco Carbone. I'm Italian. I live in Malta. I've been living here for 5 years. I do mostly financial speculation. Everybody hates that term, but speculation is a good thing. I don't know if we'll have the time to explain why. And also, out of passion, I teach economics, spread good economic ideas.
Okay, I'm Eduardo Muñoz. I'm CEO for Ebejer Foundation. In Ebejer Foundation, we work to empower people to share rights and energy. We recently added co-living and co-working spaces. We use blockchain technology to raise level of trust and enable communities to have a real sharing economy.
Cool. So to get started, I know that there are certain projects that both of y'all are very passionate about, so I wanted to kind of give a forum for each of you to speak about those, and then we can see how they link together into this concept of sharing initiatives and open governance, because I think there's two potential interpretations and both of y'all personify them. So would you like to go first? Yeah.
All right. I heard many good intentions here so far. I quite appreciated the last speech because I'm totally in line with these ideas from the political point of view. But as I said, I also teach economics at basic level. I think that many people don't have any idea whatsoever about the importance of economics, like economic theory. Unfortunately, in the universities and schools, they've been teaching the wrong economics for so many years. And the importance of economics, you can understand that when sometimes you hear money isn't, we shouldn't be interested in money. But to me, it doesn't make any sense. It's a blasphemy, actually. If you know economics, you know one thing. The money is the most important good in society. It's the most important social institution as well. Now, I don't have the time here to have a speech. It's going to take an hour to explain why. But money is very important. First of all, and most important of all, for economic calculation. Without money, there cannot be any economic calculation. To divert or to assign certain resources to the best of use. There is no way. It's impossible. Now, some people can act out of, passion, as I do. I do this activity of spreading good ideas. I'm losing money there. But I do it because I have personal benefits. Because I believe, and I think that's also has a social impact. Because teaching people good economic ideas is super important. We are actually here today in this event related to blockchain. Do you really know why Bitcoin was invented? It has to do with money. Now they're using this blockchain because it's a politically correct term. But I haven't seen, there was a guy very critical down there asking, have you been successful in implementing this blockchain? I haven't seen anything. Honestly, not something that had a very good impact so far, or some relevant impact. The only application that had an impact so far, and has been having an impact, it's Bitcoin as money. Because money don't belong to us. Before we were talking about empowerment, and that guy before, Titus, also said something. We are not in power. Money doesn't belong to us. That's why Bitcoin was invented, to give money to the people, back to the people. It's a super interesting protocol, and that's a very good thing about it. It's a common. That's another word that has been mentioned. It's a common. But usually when we talk about commons, there's a problem, which is called the tragedy of the commons. We know that whereas a public space could be a beach or any other park, a public park, the tendency is to treat that resource very badly. Everybody wants to get it first, overuse it, and then leave as little as possible to the others. That's the tragedy of the commons. Bitcoin, as I think that's one of the greatest, actually, if you want to learn more about Bitcoin, check out for this guy, Andreas Antonopoulos. Also, there are a couple of books around, very easy for everybody. They're like a collection of all speeches. He says Bitcoin is the festival of the commons because it's a protocol that everybody can use. It's open. There's also an open governance because everybody can contribute to make this protocol better, to the benefits to whoever wants to use it. And that's what has been going on in the past 7 years, 10 years since he was born. And still, though not so many people understand the importance of Bitcoin, of money, prices, and everything that guides human action. Because everybody of us is a human, has his own interest. As we said, we are all different. We are all different. Everybody can have his own idea about how to change the world, right? But then you have to cope with the economic system we're living in, with competition, cooperation, collaboration. Prices are super important on that. Money is super important. And I do believe that this is the first basic block to understand before trying to change, really to change the world.
Yeah, so I'm going to pause you quickly because I think there's two interesting things that kind of separate it out from what you were saying. One is the idea of governance of a protocol itself, the ability to fork a protocol, the ability to have an input with a protocol, versus how that protocol is used to influence open governance of like other systems itself. So I think, yeah, that you might have something to say about that, and yeah, some ideas tying in.
Yeah, first of all, is it working?
No, I don't think so. You want to use
mine? Hello. Okay. So first of all, I need to agree with you on something, and it's money is very important. You can't build things without money. And in my land, we say that the most sensitive organ of human body is the pocket, because and it's true because people tend to react only when its pocket is affected, right? So one of the biggest motivations in human activities is relative to value and to be able to buy things. In terms of blockchain being useful in social impact, and what we do is related to enable communities to manage their own utilities, basically. So, and it's about efficiency, and it's about monetary efficiency. It's about having access to services at a lower price and a better quality, and taking their own decisions about which technology they want to use. It's already related to what free private cities just tell us. So what we do is it's a very micro maybe compared to what they do. Is specifically related to the management of mobility, energy, and co-living, co-working. But it's at the same, it's in the essence, same thing. What blockchain enables us, and this comes to the discussion we were having earlier, it's true that empowerment is about being able to take decisions, but you will never take good decisions with bad information. So education and information and transparency are very important to raise the level of trust. Without that, we aren't able to do what we are doing, which is actually putting in the hands of people the management of their own utilities. Because, not because it's a good idea, simply because governments have proven not having the ability of doing that. If you see what happens with our utilities, I mean, the energy sector is totally in crisis. Resiliency is very low. We're having blackouts everywhere. We are having bigger climate events, even if we believe or not in climate change. those things are happening and we are not being resilient to react to those in our cities. And that kills people, basically. I mean, it kills people, it makes your life miserable, and that's affecting us very seriously. So if you ask me, having the ability of putting in the hands of people the right of participating actively on decisions, on their daily life activities, is one of the big things of this moment. I can understand people shouting about, is there any successful social impact? We're under development. I mean, the thing is new, right? We are trying to change the whole reality of our societies. There are many projects that are working with success lately. In our case, we made a very successful demo in November, enabling vehicles connecting with renewable energy resources, with charging stations. So things are changing, but it takes time. I mean, it took us like more than a century to be in the very creepy space we are right now. We're trying to get out and working hard. And again, blockchain is not the solution to everything. It's a very good tool to solve things, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, so I think there's one thread that runs between both of y'all's approach, I think, our approach to this question of open governance, and I think that's like there's a failure of the actual governmental structure to be addressing the needs that people have, whether that's taking care of actual pressing issues or like allocating funds in a way that actually makes a society run efficiently. So I know that both of y'all have mentioned, an interest in increasing efficiency, and was wondering both of your perspectives on how these kind of blockchain systems that we're able to make that sit adjacent to but outside of traditional governance structures are addressing this issue of increased efficiency, increased transparency, and increased control. So, or by control I mean control of allocating resources to the actual projects or individuals who need them from the correct points within the government or outside of it.
Well, in our case, we created an organization with a very clear objective of lowering the cost of access to clue facts of our lives. So housing, a very big problem in the major cities. We are having people expelled of big Californian cities because of the raise of prices in housing. So now we have people traveling 2 hours each way to get to their jobs every day, and that makes their lives really miserable. So if we are able to lower the cost and improve the life of people by using this technology, and by maybe creating a more fair system in terms of decision taking and benefits of it, that's what we should pursue. When we are talking about resiliency and about the ability of sharing a space for housing in terms of lowering the cost of access, so those are main things for us. I mean, lowering the cost of access to housing, to mobility, reducing the time of transit time, or sharing a vehicle so you can actually work while you're traveling. Those are things that will improve people's life, will make their cost of living lower, and if you think about, for example, let's say, you know how much money is lost in traffic in areas like Los Angeles? Yeah. It's 27 billion per year. We're talking about money here, right? So in the Bay Area, it's 14 billion per year lost in traffic, and we are not even considering pollution, air pollution. 10 million people dying because of air pollution every year. Let's not even consider that. What is also money, because it's health budget. It's a lot of issues there. So I would say it's a major problem. There's a major problem. Our cities are inefficient. Our systems are totally screwed.
So when
so we need to build them up from the bottom up putting the decisions in the hand of people, because governments have proven from Paris Agreement in 2015 up to now that they are incapable of moving at the speed we need.
Yeah. So when you refer to building a resilient system, can you talk a little bit about resilience and anti-fragility and how that plays out into, you know, actually taking these actionable steps that you're referring to?
Well, yeah, we have very good examples in major tragedies lately. So if you see any hurricane hitting the US, I mean, we're not talking, I will forget about the monsoons hitting Southeast Asia, or because it's maybe unfair for them. But we're talking about events hitting the most powerful country on earth. Yeah. And you see the infrastructure is not resilient at all. I mean, we see people in a miserable condition, and no energy, no sanitary conditions, no nothing, because the cities aren't prepared for what is a new reality. I mean, so we need to change. It's the only thing I can say, and the only way of doing this faster and efficiently is if we all participate using new technology and new ways of doing it.
Yeah, well, I think it's really interesting because then talking to both of y'all, you know, preparing for this panel, then, you know, there's kind of two infrastructure layers that I think that y'all have identified. The first being kind of this, you know, the actual grid of traffic, transporting people, electrical systems, and then what you were mentioning is kind of this human infrastructure that also is very weak and non-resilient of, you know, social programs, you know, programs that try to, you know, move goods or jobs to people. So can you talk a little bit about that and how it's also kind of a weak system that we might be able to resolve? Yeah, that maybe blockchain can help.
No,
with
absolutely. The blockchain or Bitcoin, we will see the uses of blockchain if there are any others beyond Bitcoin. But it's a technology. It's a decentralized technology, so it can empower people to improve many processes, right? And that's then the solutions must be found by entrepreneurs, by the creativity of...
Hello?
Hello? No, okay. So, what he's doing is actually is a very good entrepreneurial project aiming to solving lots of problems, waste of energy, lots of money spent on, you know, and if you find a solution, it's very good. That's what you should do, what everybody should do, because everybody of us is an entrepreneur. Now, then you have businessmen, you have people who are entrepreneurs in a more broad sense. Even when we go shopping at the supermarket, we're doing some economic calculation. And here I return to the importance of economic calculation. You said information, but do you ever ask yourself how most of the information is channeled to people to take decisions? Once again, through prices. Prices are super important. How do you allocate the resources, especially in these big infrastructure problem or issues? You need to perform a good economic calculation. 100 years ago, some guy, I don't know how many of you knows this name, Ludwig von Mises, which in my opinion is the greatest economist of the 20th century, but you do 4 years at the university, nobody speaks about him. He theorized the failure of socialism or any other collectivism solution to our social problems. Why? Because in socialism, with the collectivization of means, economic means, there cannot be any economic calculation. You acting in blindness, totally in blindness. And that's doomed to failure. And that's what happened. So for every of these projects, I would warn everybody a couple of things. Be entrepreneurs. Understand how to be a good entrepreneur. Do your economic calculation. Don't rely on subsidies. Because at the end, and I see many, many good ideas, at the end, you go to the political party or wherever, asking for money for your project, because your project is not attainable. It doesn't work. The only way to make it work, or actually for you to get the money, to try to make it work, but it's doomed to fail, is asking money to the state. That's why the private city is a very, very good project. I do hope that we'll open a new way to live in society. I think that decentralization also of communities. We live in big states. Actually, this country, very small, is prospering, is flourishing because it's small.
Okay, I'm going to
Small
pause
is
you for a
good.
second because I think he had a response to part of what you were saying. So I want to make sure that that gets in.
Yeah, I think we're going around a very important concept, which
Yeah.
is not government, but governance. And then within your own small private enterprise or private city, you can better manage whatever project you have in mind.
Yes.
Because
And-
economic calculation is also...
Okay.
Okay, I got it. Yeah, that's a very interesting thing there. One of the reasons of the creation of Ebejer Foundation was the lack of opportunities to innovative products, innovative projects that will change our reality due to the lack of innovation or the capacity of understanding new technologies of governments and corporations. So we're talking about innovation, we're talking about making money, all right? So we are losing a lot of big, very good projects because of the lack of governments and corporations on the evaluation of good technology. So if we can link this good technology, integrate it, communicate to public what the benefits are, so then investment can be sourced there and put it to the public. I mean, what you're saying is, let's concentrate more so things work. It won't work. I can assure you that. If we can make the access to finance, money, to innovators that will change our reality, and this is about making money. I'm not talking about not making money. What we're trying to change here is how we change our realities, how fast we can do it with decision of people that will take care of what? Of their pockets. Right? Well, they will take care of their pockets, and they will take care of their own wellness.
Okay, we're getting cut off, so one more aphorism from both of you to wrap it up.
Just to wrap it up, if we work as a community to make possible the integration of better technologies that increase our efficiency as a society, and this can be done with blockchain technology, we will be in a much better place than we are today, and that's what we are doing. Please help us.
Yes. And?
No, simple. I absolutely believe that the very good definition of property rights is absolutely necessary. There's no definition of property rights starting from money. The money that we use on an everyday basis is not well defined. We don't even know, we don't even own it.
Okay, and
so
that will take us into the next talk.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
You see and do things about you. I don't know if I need that. And I guess if you don't have energy, you're not going to be anywhere. That's why we really believe in positive energy. And I think it's a good introduction to the panel we have. So I'm Lucas from Positive Blockchain. And we'll go some introduction of the different speakers. Hey? Okay, that's gonna be good. All right, a little bit more quiet now. So yeah, we have different speakers. I think we'll basically introduce ourselves, tell us a bit what we're doing, you know, what we're seeing out there, what its social impact means in the blockchain field, and pretty much open the space. It's a workshop, so it would be really great if we can make it interactive and we guys talk. I've been told that there is no limit, time limit. I think we have 25 minutes, but if you guys want to stay and have a conversation afterwards, feel free. And I guess there will be drinks afterwards as well. Okay. So hi guys. You want to start? Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah. Hello everyone, good afternoon. My name is Severios. I'm running an NGO, a charity since 7 years, focusing on war victims in hostile regions in countries that are affected by war and poverty, such as Syria mainly, Iraq, South Sudan, Uganda, Jordan, Lebanon. So we heard a lot of good ideas and future practices and innovation that could potentially work. So I can share a little bit insights of what we did already. So before we started to talk too much about ideas, we went out and we already acted. So this is also an approach to all of you. We all can provide social impact. We can all make a change in people's life. We just need to start and doing something.
Hi everybody, my name is Andrea Bonaceto. I'm the founding partner and CEO at Eterna Capital. Eterna Capital is an investment fund based in London. We invest in blockchain projects, early stage, both token and equity. When we invest, part of our due diligence, we do also apply a social impact overlay. So for us, it's very useful to see projects from this length, because in the end, we want to invest in projects that have a positive impact on society. So happy to chat more about that.
Hi, my name is Daud Zulfaker from Berlin, and I'm a co-founder of Topia, and we were so lucky to be part of the Odyssey Hackathon that we heard before, and we won our track, Scaling Wildlife. And we came up with a solution where we said, like, all those NGOs out there are doing like really great stuff, but they don't really have a voice and no one sees them, like, and the only thing what they can do is like they can put like a lot of money into branding and marketing, or they can buy into trust certificates. And we came up with a solution how to change that, and it was allocating money from corporates and their CSR means to them based on social impact they are really doing, and that social impact is going is backed by validated data. And then we talked with tons of people in that space, and they all told us like they need a solution for that as well. We heard it also here in the panel, and so we are going to create a protocol for that, and it's going to be free for everyone who's doing a social impact, but we're going to charge money from the corporates so they can give back, because they have kind of using all those free resources of our planet for their profits, and now they can give back as well.
Great, thanks Don. I will pick up on that. So my name is Lucas Zeringer. I'm based in Frankfurt, Germany, originally French. I founded with a couple of guys here, guys, woo! Well, we founded a year ago positiveblockchain.io. So if you're looking for real social impact cases and startups and projects, you know, you want to get inspirations, you want to see out there, you know, how do you deploy blockchain technologies for solving real challenges? Go on the website, check the open source database. We have about 900 projects and startups in many areas. If you're familiar with the Social Development Goal framework from the UN, we pretty much align to this framework. So feel free to contribute, join meetups, talk to the guys afterwards. We'd love to hear your project. And if you're running social impact project, you got to be on the platform for sure. So let's start about social impact, because you know, NGOs, there should be the organizations that are purely focusing on creating some sort of social environmental impact or changing the world, right? So at what point there is an issue about that? What did you see were the challenges from NGOs in terms of reaching social impact? And basically, what is the challenge that you really want to address by, doing what you do?
Yeah, well, the problem is that at NGOs, like we are targeting like small and medium NGOs, and they don't have like departments where they can collect data, or they're not really structured in the way how they're doing reports. And it's like they're doing something for a social cause, but they have to show evidence to the world that they're doing that, and they're really lacking trust and transparency. And like you mentioned, those sustainable development goals, they are nice as a framework. They have like KPIs below them, but that's not enough, and it's hard for them to understand them, and they have to get educated. And that's not the only data resource we have. So right now what we're looking at is we're trying to map like those sustainable development goals to other open data sets, and then also if the NGO has any data, which is not the case in most of the times, we're trying to put that as well to it, so enrich like the data, so you can really see like what kind of KPIs what kind of data they provided to feed those KPIs that can prove their social impact. And then you as a donor can decide like what it is based on, and you can make a better decision and have more transparency on that. And I think, and not that you think that I'm stating here that we can solve all that, like this is something like we just give you a framework and a protocol, and we need to collaborate like with tons of people out there, because there's so many smart minds on the world who have been working like on various problems, and we have to combine all of them, and like we have to share our knowledge, and we have to tap into all those open data, and that hasn't been done in a proper way up to now.
Would you have an example of an NGO, a specific data set that you would help, put up on the platform, report, and what would they do with that at the end?
Yeah, like for instance, our challenge owner was the Mazarang Foundation. That's a guy who has been living like for over 40 years in the rainforest in Borneo, and he has come up with like tons of various ideas how he can collect data from taking drone images, coming up with sensors that meter like biomass per hectare and stuff like that. And if you combine all that, then you can kind of come up with various KPIs that he can show what kind of impact he really does. But he has also tons of different projects that he's running, and we are focusing in the beginning just on the reforestation part.
Okay, good. Severios, what about you tell us a bit about the social challenges that, because you've been running for several years NGOs, perhaps you can tell us a little bit more concretely what you've been doing, and what were the social, what were the challenges that you faced as an NGO, and how very concretely you're trying to address it today through technologies?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Actually, we are working on 3 different layers. As an NGO, we have a vision of sustainability. We first focus on emergency and relief aid. That should be the small term of the stage, of the humanitarian stage. Then we have a community development, and then we provide sustainability through entrepreneurship and creating jobs, projects like that for students. And all our use cases, all our experience, we try to transform it and digitalize it, and started 1 year ago with a blockchain solution, basically a digital technology, which is basically solving several problems. A main issue is lack of information. We have heard the same thing before in the topics, lack of information and sharing information between NGOs. There's always NGOs working in the same field, but they have no clue what the NGO did a day before. We don't have a common platform that we use, that NGOs can use and share all their data, or collect data and share it, and profit from the experience from the collected data. And the other thing is, the beneficiaries, the people who really need the aid, they don't have a voice. They don't have, they cannot decide basically. They get what the NGO decides to provide them. They don't have a platform to share their needs or to share their interests. And today we see that lots of people that we are supporting, they have a smartphone, they use Facebook, they use social media platforms, they have WhatsApp. They talk and exchange information with lots of other people, with platforms, with relatives. And we as an NGO, we are working very close to people because we are exchanging with communities before we create a humanitarian aid project. So first we collect the people in a place, for example, and just talk to them for days and see what is the need they have. And this is also a practice that we will digitalize and create a tool out of it, which is very simple to use and to tailor better aid programs towards the specific needs. And at the same time, you can save a lot of money and time with that.
Okay, thanks for that. Matteo, perhaps you have some examples of projects you've been looking at and the way they address social challenges.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think first of all, blockchain is by some extent philosophically aligned with social impact and providing a social, like providing good impact to the world. You know, this trend with decentralized technologies and disintermediating by removing the middleman. As an investor, as I said, we use it as a part of our due diligence process. We made an investment in a project called Origin Protocol. This is basically creating a protocol for building sharing economy applications on the blockchain. I think this is an example of how you can actually have a social impact within the sharing economy space, where sometimes the margins are very squeezed, and by doing that, by creating a decentralized ecosystem, you can provide more value for the service provider and the service takers. Then there are many other examples. If you look, for instance, at renewable energies, you can move from a system where this is centralized with a centralized provider to a situation where I have solar panels, you have solar panels, we can trade peer-to-peer renewable energies with a decentralized grid system, and we can reduce drastically the cost. As well on, for instance, on the supply chain element. There is a big issue on counterfeit goods, and by applying blockchain to supply chain, you can identify what is not working in the supply chain process, and you can eliminate that. So I think there are, many use cases, and as a fund, right now we are mostly focusing on the infrastructure play, because I think that's instrumental to allow decentralized applications to then flourish. But we are really very much also looking forward now from scalable applications addressing very tangible social challenges.
Have you guys heard about SolarCoin? Who heard about SolarCoin? Yeah? Great, yeah. There was a gentleman in the back before. He asked about real projects that we see out there. I think it's one big issue that we have even at Positive Blockchain, because we list 900 projects. Many of them have great white papers, but what do they really do? What's the real impact they bring? Sometimes it's a bit difficult to see the big impact. But if you look at SolarCoin, so they're partnering now. They have a big energy platform with SMA, which is solar inverter and converter manufacturer in Germany. They have almost 300,000 users. We're talking about professional solar companies, investing and installing solar projects. 300,000 users. They're moving per day about 2 terabytes of data with SolarCoin. So the way it works is 1 megawatt. It's 1 SolarCoin. In terms of volume of the total solar energy market, it's about 5% of all the volume of solar energy, which is nowadays now using SolarCoin as a reward system. So I think it's a good example. We had last time an example. We had the impact report from Doomernik. Anyone knows Doomernik from name? Yeah, a little bit. It's basically an app to bank the unbanked. We're talking about 2 billion people that don't have access to traditional banking systems. They reported earlier this year 500,000 users on their app. Big impact. and I invite you to have more look at what they do. We had a topic also in the panel about still financial inclusion. There's a big platform called coins.ph in Philippines. They already have 5 million users, basically working on moving money, remittances, especially for people that don't have access to traditional financing. So I think that's you already see there are quite some projects that are bringing a lot of results. Back to the work that you're doing, how are you addressing blockchain concretely in the project you're doing? How are you using the technology? And perhaps linked to that, what are the challenges that you see, all of them? So.
I mean, for us, first of all, it's important that actually a project needs blockchain, because I think... Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay, perfect. So what I was saying is the first step is understanding whether they actually need blockchain, because we have seen in particular during 2017 a situation where everyone was using blockchain. Even though they didn't need it to solve a problem, they were using it just because it was hyped and it was easy to raise money by doing that. So now, to be honest, with the bear market, we have seen that blockchain almost became a hard sell. So projects using the word blockchain, they were better needing it. So this is the first step, because in the end you need to solve a problem, and it doesn't matter how you solve it, right? It's just important that you follow the simplest way to solve it. So for us is, of course, the first step is what problem do you solve? Do you actually need blockchain? And then from there, we move on. And if we understand that this can be done with a private database and the blockchain is not a key element, we just stop. This is just a red flag for us to move on into the next projects.
On the one hand, we're tracing the donations. On the other hand, I didn't elaborate on that. We are coming up with a batch. So whenever you get a donation, you can publish a badge for the donator. And if you press on that badge, you can place it in your social media or on your website. Then the report pops up again with the data that shows your social impact. And who published the badge is also on the blockchain. And the third thing is the timestamping of the data, so you can really see on based on what data, like who was the data publisher, and what data at what time was taken to show you the impact that the report shows.
Actually, we are also trying to find the best solutions. We have a model that we will tokenize funds that are raised through charity fundraising campaigns, and we tokenize the funds and send it as impact vouchers that have a specific purpose, like food aid, education, healthcare. Send them straight from the wallet, from the campaign, to the wallets of the end beneficiaries on the ground. And funds or donations won't end up in accounts, in bank accounts from NGOs anymore, where there's no last mile control on it, but will be sent straight as digital value to the end beneficiaries that can be used on the ground in our ecosystem that we build. And every NGO has an ecosystem. Many people are not aware about that. Lots of NGO, they have collaborations with local merchants, with distributors, with service providers, and they can simply just onboard the guys. And we have done several proof of concepts in Jordan, in Iraq, in Syria, even in the worst places, in most remote places, and find out that this model will basically work very well. There is still some challenges, but this summer, we can announce that this summer or latest by September, we will test it in a very hardly affected area in Syria.
Good, thanks. We talk about the way NGO is working, providing change in the world. You talked about verification a little bit. You talked about reporting data, and I think providing some sort of social change in the world around us, you need to prove the evidence of that change, right? Whether it is to get funding or to communicate about what you're doing. and there's a lot of discussion about where do you get this data from. You know, we talk a lot about oracles, about third parties that can help you to collect the evidence from the world. And there are some protocols working on this. What is your understanding of how the technology can help there? You know, streamlining this data and this real life evidence. How does it happen? And is it really going to be decentralized, especially?
Yeah, well, like most of the solutions we looked up, like they have a validation part in there, which is based again on a human factor, and there's some incentives. And whenever you come up with incentives, then there are also humans that like to fill their pocket and like to trick the system. So we also look at things that like sensors with crypto chips to meter something. It doesn't work for any KPI, yeah, but we are looking at reforestation. So there might be sensors with cryptos chips inside of it that sign the data, so you really can say it's from that device, and like that you can't really trick the system, but you have to really look at every single case and see what kind of research was made there. But we think the less incentive there is from a human factor that can be tricked, the better it is. Unfortunately, the systems we looked at, they all look great on a paper, but if you see how they are executed,
it's still a failure.
Yeah, you see the one or other failure. Although I love all those projects, I'm not trying to make them bad or something like that, but I believe that we have to come up with something else.
Okay. You guys want to react on that? Yeah. So what about we open up? Do you guys have any question? I think we can make it around, make it open. Any topic you feel like addressing? Yeah.
I'm also from the NGO side, so what do you think about adoption? Because blockchain is a big word, AI is also an NGO. They are very, I would say, not maybe aware of blockchain and the potential and stuff. How do you see the usability of your solutions?
It's always an important topic. Well, basically, I can talk about our solution. An NGO won't feel that they are operating on a blockchain, but they see the outcome, they see the results, and they see their benefit, how they can prove it. And the important thing is always, if you can prove it in a real use case with your existing NGO already, and prove that it's making a big impact and benefit for your use case or for the people in need, then the adoption will come. Of course, you will always have opponents, but we are mainly targeting on the small local NGOs that really are on the ground and do big impact, but they will never have a voice, they will never raise funds because you don't have a connection to them and there's no trust and there's no information. So we empower the locals to use these technologies, and the locals, according to our experience, they're running by young, educated people on the ground that are very open to technology and innovation.
If you read the report of the Bounties Network, they did this big mobilization for collecting plastic on the Manila beach in Philippines. They report on the implementation of the project and what went wrong. And the main thing they said, it was about education. Right? Because if you want to mobilize people to collect plastic by using the app, they need to understand how it works. They need to have an app. They need to have internet access. They need to know where they can get funds, because it's going to work with tokens. And we are very, very far away from seeing that. We have, in Germany, we have conversations with some development agencies, like KFA or GIZ, these types. We have some interesting discussions, but the other thing they're saying is that most solutions, they're not mature yet, and that doesn't help the adoption because there's a growing skepticism, actually, that it's going to work at all, So you need to educate people on solutions that are not ready yet, yeah? So I think we still have a really long way to go until it works, especially when you talk about people that are really far from technology. That's why education, I think someone said it before, education is key. Yeah.
So one point I want to make that is relevant for NGOs, but I think for any kind of organization. So blockchain adoption is directly correlated with the ease of usability. So at the moment, it's very complex, right? So probably UI and UX are the main killer social impact applications on blockchain. Because at the moment, if I want to send you 1 Bitcoin, I need to go on at a Delta, like open my address, then take your code, and if I do a mistake in a number, it's not that I can take the phone, call a bank, say, sorry, I made a mistake. Like, there's no one. It goes like on in a black hole, and we cannot expect the average person to be comfortable with that. So we need to, first step is having infrastructures that are scalable, secured, and decentralized, and have a few of them, so then decentralized apps can basically choose on which infrastructure they want to build. And then you need to have something very easy to use. Like when you send now a message on WhatsApp, right? You do it, but you have no idea what is the dynamics going behind the message that's been sent, right? So people, they do not need to understand blockchain in every single detail. They just need to say, okay, before I was going to an hospital in another country and I had to go and put all my information from scratch. Now, you know what? I go there and it's there already. I don't know how. There was some magic behind, but it worked. So we need to arrive at that level of ease of use from the interface standpoint to ensure that we get the right adoption.
Yeah. Take a last question. Okay.
Yes.
The money is not being used in the right place. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking about it.
Yes, but.
So my question is, what do you think? I see this as a challenge, because for the NGOs to come and integrate also, not your NGO, but in general, we are talking statistics. So what do you think?
Yeah, but as an NGO, you can decide if you participate in that system or not. And if you know that you're really doing a social impact and you want to show it, then you're gonna participate, and then you're gonna get easier funds and raise them, or not funds, like donations for it. And it's voluntary for you as an NGO to participate or not. So. Yeah, but you would see the impact they're doing. Like if they make out of 1 million just a little impact, then you wouldn't give them more money and no one else would. So they wouldn't use the system like that if they would spend it on high salaries. So it's not that we're not going down like really in the organization and say for each cent how they are using it. It's just we're showing the impact. If they make a huge impact, then if you spend some money for it, that it's being used for a good impact. So, yeah. Did I answer your question? Or? Okay.
Let's continue that outside or finish the session here. Thank you very much, and talk to you guys later.
So, good afternoon. Thank you very much for your attention. I want to share my story from the point of view of an angel investor into startups, because I think some parameters like the return on investment, which is a very known term in the investing world, should be rethought a bit. Just a little background of myself. I'm a co-founder of 2 projects. One of them is busyman.cz, which is a startup incubator based in Prague. We are in business since 2010, and we connect startups with angel investors. We have a database of 900 investors who invest into mainly Czech ideas in the seed and pre-seed phase. We have facilitated 10 million euro investment into over 100 startups. Another project, which is my heart project, is a Crown platform. It's basically a community-driven blockchain, which was launched in 2014. Not an ICO, it was fairly launched. At that time, ICOs didn't exist. The idea of this blockchain is a blockchain as a service. I was listening to the previous discussion. I agree with some points. I think that blockchain, to go mainstream, it's still 10 years until we see that. And in the meantime, I believe that the important thing about blockchain is to learn how communities, blockchain communities, could be governed and should be governed. We are a leading, industry-leading protocol. We just turned proof of stake, but where master nodes and system nodes generate blocks, which is the first, basically, first time in the crypto industry this happened. And we are releasing an NFT platform, which is a non-fungible token platform, where we will enable digital and physical assets to be registered on the chain. So return on investments in startups today. These are the questions which we hear from our investors. You know, when will I get my money back? How many times my money I will make? I will sell my stake to the next fool mentality. So primary focus is my money. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, money was made hard time, so we need to not to lose it easily. Secondary focus is maybe society and other stakeholders. I believe that a new term should be introduced, and I called it return on society, where when looking at a startup idea, I think there are some questions that needs to be answered, and those are: does the startup really help to solve a real problem? Does it have a positive impact on all stakeholders? And does the envisioned solution really go by established moral principles? So in my view, the primary focus when angels invest into startups should be really stakeholders' well-being and the society overall. Secondary focus, of course, is my money, and the standard return on investment. From my experience, it's really possible to achieve very good returns when you apply the return on society parameter before the return on investment. We have invested over dozens of startups since 2013. As I said, we applied the return on society parameter to most of the investments. And the result of this experiment was that we were able to make money while supporting startups or ideas who are really helping the broader society. So it doesn't have to be an NGO, it doesn't have to be a non-profit organization which doesn't make money, but even a startup which is let go into a business environment and has a high moral principle, and it's positive to society, can really make money. And that's a very interesting finding, because when we see the world today and we see the big companies like Facebook and Uber and all these unicorns out there, some of them I think are doing a very good job, but we as angel investors actually stand in a unique position right now to change the world. You hear it from the word angel investor. What does it mean? Basically, angel investor, it's somebody who is coming from the sky to help the other guy with an idea. Well, it's not like that. The angel investor is actually putting their money to work, but with this money, he can help to make the world a better place. And as I said, it's really possible, and we have achieved very, very good results. These are some of the examples of our own investments, which myself and my partner did for the last 10 years. Busy man, helping people to build their world-changing ideas with the money and experience of angels. That's a very important idea, because today we hear about crowdfunding, we hear about all these P2P, P2B platforms, but the power of connecting startup to angels is that usually these angels already are established businessmen who exited their businesses and have the experience which can help the young startups to succeed. And he's actually, or she's actually becoming a partner in the startup, sharing the context, sharing the business experience. So we think that this model can be the winning one. And as we are entering in the idea world where ideas will make the capital and the values, and robots will make all the physical things around us, we believe that to have an idea platform is really key. Crown, as I mentioned, it's a community shared responsibility blockchain. We see today, and I was walking through the conference and I saw so many blockchain ideas out there, and everybody is focusing on one specific segment, like cars, security of the blockchain, etc. We believe that it's too early to focus on anything on the blockchain. We first need to learn how to govern it, and we need to share the responsibility as stakeholders of the blockchain. It's not that I invest in Bitcoin and I just see it to go to 50,000 and I sell, that's fine, but did I add some value to it? And this is what we are trying to do at Crown, that we have a governance system in place, and stakeholders basically vote for the ideas which they want to see implemented on the blockchain, and we are learning how to govern it together and how to share the responsibility. Fingood is again, I love the word where we connect fin and good together. It's basically a leading P2B platform in the Czech Republic, where companies, instead of going to the bank to borrow money, they borrow the money from individuals while making new customers. So I think it's a very interesting segment. Erebos, everybody knows Red Bull. So Erebos is basically an energy drink, but based on herbal, based on herbs, so without all the chemicals. So even an energy drink can be made a positive one without chemicals. Home 3, it's an ion house technology, basically helping people to regenerate their organism while they're at home. So very interesting platform. Fairplay Auto, again, just notice the words that are very important for us, the name of the companies and the name of the projects. We always try to put a positive sense in it. You see good, you see fair play. So it's a used car market where basically people buy verified cars from each other instead of going to dealers who, at least in my country, are crooks. And then we see I Like E-Bike. Again, we connect pleasure with organized tours in electric bikes in Prague, in Budapest. It's the largest electric bike company basically in Prague and in Budapest. And iWaiter, digitalization of order payment process in restaurants. So these are just some of the examples where angel investors invested into positive impact, social impact platforms, and they were able to make money. So if there are any angels in here, maybe this experience which we have gathered for the last 7 years could be interesting to you because it works. So thank you very much for your attention.
Hi. Yeah, I'm really interested. I have a panel
discussion now. But
Welcome to the social impact panel here on how blockchain can facilitate these endeavors by individuals and groups worldwide. We have a wonderful group of people here to help us explain some of that. Starting with, I'm going to just pass the microphone and you can introduce yourselves, with Liliana Carrillo.
Thank you very much. I'm Liliana Carrillo, and I'm a social and digital entrepreneur. I'm also a TED speaker.
Well, I'm Eduardo Muñoz. I'm CEO of Ebejer Foundation. We work in the energy sector and regarding mobility with electric vehicles and also zero net buildings.
hello, my name is Sander Habsburg. I'm the chairman of the Foundation for Peace out of Vaduz, Liechtenstein. And I have been working together with my wife for the last 20 years on our NGO, which works in 80 countries, known as the Association for Furtherance of Peace. And we have an award called the Flame of Peace. Thank you.
My name is JP Doomernik. I'm a senior business developer for the Dutch grid operator Inexus. Also co-founder of the community Nature 2.0, where we bring together all kind of critical infrastructure parties and connect them to the purpose-driven younger generation to create ecosystems that solve problems that are not based on money making.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Juliette Anarino, and I'm a content writer and editor for blockchain projects worldwide. I'm based in Los Angeles, but I work remotely. Just to give you a little introduction on myself. So I'd like to start with Liliana, and I'd like you to help us to understand a little bit of how tech may be contributing positively to solve global warming issues.
Thank you very much. Well, I'll actually ask a question to the audience. Who thinks that, like, raise your hand if you think or if you feel that you are using tech in general or videos more than 5 years ago? Video, are you using, for example, Skype or Zoom, or using streaming video, like Netflix or so on? Okay. Yeah, so I think it's all of us. So the consumption of our consumption is actually very high. We are over-consuming, and this is actually a problem. So right now, we are causing more problems than solutions. I invite you, for example, to read an article. There is a report, an association with researchers, an association with businesses. It's called the Shift Project, and there you can see all the information about energy and the impact of ICT and internet technologies in the energy sector.
Thank you, Liliana. I would like to ask all of you on the panel to contribute to this question. What, in your opinion, are the fundamental issues regarding environmental protection? And starting with you, sir.
Environmental protection, well, that's a big one. Yeah, in our case, what motivated us is 10 million people dying of air pollution every year. That really moved us in terms of really working on bringing a sharing economy to change the way we move people, things, and energy in our society. There's a big change that needs to be done, but we need to bring first convenience, then cost-effective solutions, but mainly zero emission solutions. So that's what we've been working in this space for more than 10 years, almost 11 already. We are crowdfunded with 750 people from 22 countries, so collaboration for us is everything. There's no way of doing this without collaboration. I praise people that do projects like they do because we interact with innovators. I mean, and we bring their technologies to life as early as possible. Thank you
for your contribution. And Sandor, could you tell us a little bit maybe about regulations too, if you can help us to understand the challenges that regulations present?
on the fundamental issue on environmental protection as a whole, I'd like to go back. I started working in this subject in 1983. I wrote my first paper on greenhouse gases, which today everybody thinks is normal. By that paper, I thought I was nuts. But, it's like, okay, I'm dreaming, about trees and things like that. But actually, the most fundamental issue is education. It is teaching people what it means, how environmental, and most of the problems that we have in the environment today are due to waste. And it's not what we're doing, it's not the manner that we use energy in that, or that we have plastics and that, is what we do with it and how we deal with it. So if we look at some advanced countries when it comes to energy consumption, you see they have a very stable energy consumption. You go like, how's that possible? How is it possible that a country has, for the last 20 years, not increased their energy consumption? Because we have devices, we're using more and more, as you said, more and more electricity. Well, it's because we're getting more efficient of how we use that electricity. So we use light energy saving processes, then we will conserve that what we have, and I use that what we have better. Every pollutant that we have out there is actually raw materials that we have wasted. So actually, if we concentrate it from an economical point of view, if we don't waste it, we are more efficient, we will be more profitable, and we will protect the environment. Thank you.
Excellent. I would like to ask JP, direct this primarily to you, and everyone can, of course, contribute. But as far as blockchain technology goes, how do you see it specifically contributing to address these issues?
What we do is we look at blockchain from a research perspective, because as critical infrastructures of the world that we try to unite, we care about solutions that work. We don't care about how to make money out of it, because that's not our role. That means this value that we bring into society, we are very much aware of it, and we don't want it to be disrupted. So that means that we are looking not only at blockchain, but at all digital technologies, because in the digital realm, if you build it on one place on the earth, it's automatically everywhere. And all the critical infrastructures of the world are not each other's competitors. So we use topics like blockchain and AI to do research on how can systems work, complex systems work, that are not driven by the hunger of forcing people to pay. Because systems that force people to pay have crappy engineering. If you look at the story of stuff which is on YouTube, then they tell you about how the economy works. And then they say to keep up the pace, you have to throw away 99% of the stuff you bought in the last 6 months. If you throw away less, the economy goes down.
I think you're talking about planned obsolescence, right?
Yeah.
Apple, wink, wink.
Yeah. But this is exactly the case. Throwing it away is, from an engineering point of view, makes no sense. Only to keep this metric. And as critical infrastructures, we have the freedom to be not incentivized by this metric, but creating a society that works.
Well, that's a really interesting point, and I would also like all of the panelists to contribute to this question. How do you see the future? What kind of developments do you hope to see, or are you helping to promote right now?
Thank you very much. Well, my background is in artificial intelligence, and basically for artificial intelligence, we just have to decide what we want to achieve, right? If we have as goal, for example, as goal the optimization or efficiency of energy, then that is what we will get from the algorithms, right? So it's like concentrate on what's the goal that we want to achieve, and that's what we will get as result.
Totally right. Yeah, so artificial intelligence brings us increased efficiency. And blockchain brings us the ability of registration and validation. We didn't have this combined thing. So this combined thing will bring us a level of efficiency, a level of certifying how waste is processed, how we can reduce waste in terms of the efficiency of the use of things. So in my perspective, the conjunctions of those technologies is what will bring us to a much better place. And that is related to every single thing in our lives. It's not only about energy, it's not only about waste, and it's not only about different things. But being able to trace, for example, decisions, how we reward people for being better in terms of social impact, in terms of environmental issues. This is what will bring us to a much better place. We had very bad experiences with carbon credits in the past, mainly because we weren't able to certify or validate them. So people making money of fraudulent carbon credits ended was something which in essence was good. Now we have the ability of even tracing decisions of people. If they decide to stop using their own internal combustion motor vehicle and start using a shared electric vehicle, we can issue a carbon credit on their behalf automatically, and that will obviously incentivize him to do it, right? So for sure, this is we're having the opportunity of improving things very much.
Back. And Sandor, sorry.
Trying to sum up on what both of you said before, and from an engineering point of view, you're absolutely right. The system will do that what you design it to do. And I think particularly that what is a huge responsibility and opportunity that we have with the blockchain technology, we can define those processes. And when we define those processes, then we will have the resources also to look at how efficient and effective our processes is, and then we can go back and improve upon them. So for example, I have been working for many, many years in the charitable organization, although I come out of the engineering and telecommunications sector. And we are looking now at how to fund charities. So if we analyze the whole process and consider it, implementing it on a blockchain process, we're looking at how does the process start. It starts when the person makes a decision to make a donation. And how is the chain of events all the way till the money or the assistance arrives at the charity which is doing the work. And how do we collect the information about how they're doing the work and to measure its effectiveness of what has happened. So once we design it, it will do that what we designed it to do, but we have to build into the system a whole set of what has been discussed here in the last days, which I think is most fundamentally important, is the rules and the ethics by which we design and build these systems. You know, they have to be open, they have to be transparent, they should be there for everybody, because the experience that we have gained, it should be there available for the other person also, because maybe they have a better idea than we had, and that we can then build upon all of those things. Yes.
This is really interesting because you bring in the aspect of accountability, which blockchain will definitely facilitate. And you can build on that if you'd like to, that question, but I think it's pretty well covered. You could expand on it. I would like to maybe for you to go into, JP, looking far into the future, you know, looking at maybe what we might think of as a fantasy right now, but may very well be a reality in the near future.
This is exactly our tackling point. What we share as challenge on the big hackathons where we let teams participate is build the unimaginable. But the unimaginable is only unimaginable because of our frozen mindsets. So as soon as we leave the realm or where the business case rules, we see other kind of solutions, and as soon as you see them, you can build them because the technology is there. You will find that researchers have been working on those topics for years and years and years, but then came to an investor and said, yeah, can we force people to pay with this? No, then I don't care. And what we are bringing together is the people who really want things to happen. So, for example, we all eat food. And the business model of food is that the supermarket can say to the supplier, if you want to sell your stuff through my store, you have to lower your cost. The only thing the supplier can do is lower the quality. And we are maybe happy that we pay less for food, but we get unhealthy food. So you can, if you say, okay, let's create healthy food that is cheaper than unhealthy food by parties who do not make money out of it, but just think that it's a damn good idea, then you're not building a business, you're building a commons. But that means that for everybody on the world who thinks this is a good idea, they can build upon what you're doing because you're jointly aligning people to create these kinds of solutions. And this is where for the distributed ledger technology, like in Hypochain or IOTA, it's you can very fast think in machines interacting with machines. So if you take the research bureau Gartner, who says we are thinking about a programmable economy as long-term vision. The programmable part is yes, but if it's an economy or not will be decided by the guys who built the machines and built the ecosystem. And we now are in the era that we all can imagine machines operating autonomously, the self-driving car. It doesn't need humans to operate it. So if you build the machines and you build the ecosystem, you decide on the narrative. And this is the magic of this age.
So what kind of challenges do you see facing this new world of machines communicating with machines? And also, how do you quell the fears that people have about specifically AI? And yeah, if you can expand on that a little bit. You can start it off and we'll go the opposite way. Just what kind of fears do you see there?
So what is the biggest fear that I have? I'm not a very fearful guy, so I have to think very hard.
What do you see the public having? Because I say we need to educate people en masse about this. And what would be the most efficient way to reach people? Because most capitalist paradigms are so simple, but of course, so they're vulnerable to such great corruption, especially the larger the organization.
Yeah. Well, what I find in a very inspiring example is oxygen. It's the product with the best lock-in of the world, because if you don't breathe for 5 minutes, you die. But we humans are very honest about oxygen. We don't care about oxygen because there's so much of it. We can make money out of it. So nobody talks about the trust in oxygen. Nobody talks about the quality in oxygen. We just don't care. So there is a new level of engineering that we can define. Define it, we create a system that works so well that nobody cares. I come from the energy businesses, but this morning as you woke up, the sun was shining, delivering 1,500 times the amount of raw energy you need on your roof for free, already distributed. We humans created this system in which we invested billions that forces us to transport energy nationally and internationally by parties who are also in there for the money. This means that with the whole purpose-driven younger generation, we can start about thinking of energy hubs, different form of energies that together create an ecosystem that could also operate. And I know for one that the grid operators would be very happy to do that, because this kind of solutions where energy would be almost free or even free would ensure that there is no commercial party that can claim the dominance of energy, because if you dominate energy, you can basically decide what's going to happen.
Very noble idea, I like that. All right, and just to, I'm sorry, we don't have much time really, so we need to conclude. So in conclusion, I'd like the panelists to just say something about what your project or what your ideal scenario will provide people in the near future, what you see as the next step for you personally in your project.
There you go. Thank you. I'm personally contributing in two ways. One is from the technology point of view, and the other one is more the human point of view. Let's start from the human point of view. I organize camps for kids, and what actually we do there is work on awareness. So basically education. You mentioned that the importance of education. And I also make the link with you is as simple as being aware that we are human beings with needs, right? And our needs, like if we go to the basics, what do we need? We need food, we need water, we need to breathe, right? So then if we work at a human level, we become more responsible of what is happening around us because it affects us, okay? And from the technology point of view, we are creating a grid. So basically right now, most of the information is concentrated in big data centers. So the information is actually, when we go to a website, we are making our system travel all around the world to maybe find a server that is in America, or it's far from us. This is internet traffic, and it uses a lot of devices, and it's consuming very much, right? So the solution that we are creating, and actually it's not we are creating, it's already created, is to work on edge computing. So to have a server and a machine that is serving us here closely, and we don't need to go till America to serve.
Well, in our case, it's very clear. We have a very broad vision of what we want to do, but right now we're concentrated on making zero-net energy buildings for co-living and co-working, so younger population would have a space to work and to live in a community sense with a very low impact. And we are also establishing community-owned assets in the area of transportation. So we are creating fleets of electric vehicles that are used by the community to move, but we also provide services of transportation to online services and energy storage systems using the vehicles as one battery with artificial intelligence, providing energy storage systems to the community too. So we are trying to bring efficiency to the society in many terms and working hard on that, concentrating on those two major areas at the beginning.
It was a good question where to start. To sum things together, probably, I think we have mentioned it a couple of times, the most fundamental basis is education. And when we talk about fears, it's not because I'm stupid, it's just because I don't understand it. And things that we don't understand, we tend to get worried about. I think that blockchain and this technology that has evolved over the last 40 years, basically, I won't explain that why, but okay.
We had more time.
The blockchain has the ability to automate many processes in a very transparent and a very secure, and more importantly, in a very stable process, as was said before by Liliana, that once established, once defined, it will do exactly that job and no other job. So actually, it can run for all perpetuity, doing exactly that job, and you never need to touch it again. And there is a huge potential of stabilizing many processes which are not stable today. Because if you go to, say, a government and you want to apply for a process or for a license, it's basically a set of rules and you have to fill out the form, and the machine can take care of all the necessary background work and give you your answer immediately. It does not need to go to the politician or the person there who sits in his desk and goes, he's not from my district, or no, he's not coming from there. Blockchain process will execute exactly as it was designed, and it will be completely unambiguous about it. So I think this is something that will take us a long way ahead of that. It will be a great tool to fight corruption and these things. And maybe one word to artificial intelligence, because it's very hyped and a lot of people don't understand it at all. To have machines and systems making decisions on its own that were not preconceived, we're immensely far away from that. But artificial intelligence, as a logic, as a programming logic, it has one ability that I think is going to be for us, particularly in the area of charity, corruptions, and things that people aren't doing. It is very good at finding the anomalies in a system. It will detect that what should not be there, i.e. it will detect those persons who are trying to build a scam. It will detect the attempts to abuse the system or to circumnavigate the system. So I think education in this area is hugely important, because I think artificial intelligence actually will help us protect us from abuse rather than a system that will abuse. Okay?
Very good. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Habsburg. And just a few words on your next steps. Did you already talk a little bit?
We are asking all the people, what are you passionate about? Because our systems are driven by intrinsic motivation only. Victoria will tell about the Odyssey Hackathon after this session, the biggest blockchain and AI hackathon of the world. We will be there having a track where we will help you to follow your passion in a completely different way.
Thank you, JP. And I'd like to thank everyone in the audience for attending, and of course the wonderful panelists here. I'm very honored to share the stage with you, and I would invite you all to speak with each of these individuals and to learn more about what they're doing and how you can collaborate with them. As well as I'd like you to speak with me if you'd like any help with your content creation or editing. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening. Well, let's try this again. Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening. Want to make sure the room's still alive. I'll introduce myself. I promise I won't get too much into detail. It's not a, give me a second, solarium sale process right now. It's more of talking about what my section's about. It's doing well by doing good. And I want to talk about the social impact of blockchain in the space of just artificial intelligence and what you can do to look at it from an entrepreneurial standpoint. I like to say that we live in the greatest time in history right now where anyone from anywhere can do anything. And we have this new technology that has empowered us to not only like the internet, to be able to grow a business at a rapid scale, not only from the going from place to place and having it all over the earth, but at the same time to be able to have access to capital that you wouldn't get for great ideas about things that you're passionate about. And I spoke to JP actually 2 days ago, and I want to thank Project Freedom for having me, as well as Malta and AI Blockchain Summit. And some of the things that we talked about is removing the money out of the space of trying to do creative projects, and then you'll have more people think just to do items well. I look at it from I agree with it, but I look at it from a different standpoint. How do you do well by doing good? It's not bad. It's not bad to be passionate about something, to want to have your goal there, and also commoditize off of it. But how do you have the social impact that's there? And I'll reflect a little bit on that. I have a company, and it's not Solarium. What I was known for, I founded a solar company called America Green Solar back in, I believe it was 3 or 4 years ago. Since then, it has grown into one of the fastest growing companies in the United States of America, and every single household that we put solar panels on now has energy independence, impacts climate change. These people save money. And in the States and a lot of programs around the world, you get access to zero down programs to be able to do that for every single household. Now, the world 50 years from now is going to look much different than it did 50 years prior. The world 5 years from now is going to look much different than it did prior. And the reason why is because the things that are inherently good are going to come to the forefront, and people are going to be able to capitalize, and a new generation is going to be able to tap into that and change the world. Share a little bit of a story. Flying into Malta, and a beautiful island. Anyone here from Malta originally? Yeah? So we don't have to tell you how beautiful the island is. The first thing, we got off the plane, what we wanted to do is check out the island and say, you know, let's go and see what it's about. Let's go top to bottom, every crevice of it. And some, people, they went out and they went to the local pubs and they went to get the local foods and eateries. And I really just wanted to explore the natural beauty of it. So I'm walking up one of the, I don't know if it's cobblestone, but one of the roads, and I see a construction project that's happening. And a lot of the buildings have been around here for hundreds of years, longer than that. And in the United States, we don't have anything that's hundreds of years old because we're not hundreds of years old. So I'm fascinated by that in coming to a country that has welcomed me and seeing what's going on. So we walk up the street, and there's a construction site. So I'm interested because there's new construction amongst all of the older buildings that's there. And I was like, well, let's go find out. So I go to the guy, and he's over there, and he's laying some bricks, and I'm trying to talk to him. He doesn't speak English. I don't speak Maltese, so there's a disconnect in the communication that's there. So one of my cohorts happens to know a little Italian, so I was able to speak some Italian. I was excited. I said, hey, what are we doing? What's being built here? And he's like, what does it look like I'm doing? I'm laying bricks. And a little bit disheartening. It wasn't the answer that I was looking for. And they were like, all right, let's just join the rest of the group, and let's go have some fun. But I really wanted to talk about and look at what the natural beauty was and what would be new that would have such a grand construction. So I was like, let's just talk to somebody else, and let's see if we can get that happen. So we go and we try to talk to someone else, same communication barrier that we've had. And the guy has one of the pie kind of shaped shovels. I don't know what they're called, but he was basically painting a wall and going up and down. And same thing, and said, hey, what is he doing? And he has a little bit of a better attitude. And he was like, whistling while he worked, and said, I'm just building a wall. And I'm like, that's not the answer that I'm looking for, but he's working and he's enjoying it. I don't want to mess up the flow of his work. So I'm getting a little bit frustrated at this point, and I'm ready to leave. And I see someone there with a hard hat on, shirt rolled up, he's pointing, and I'm like, oh, that guy is the person who's conducting what's going on, so let me talk to him. So we both, we can speak in English together. I was like, I'm just really curious. I'm not from here. I want to know what would be building upon the natural beauty that you have. And he said, well, what I'm building is a cathedral. It's going to be a masterpiece. It's going to be something that when people come here 1,000 years from now, they're going to see what we've built and what we can sustain. And walking away from that, and it's like, thank you, that's the answer that I wanted, and reflecting on that, 3 different people in the same business sector, whatever the case is, 3 different conversations that I had, and it's a reflection of the space that it is today. It's brand new. It's a construction. So you have some people that they see what they see, and they're laser-like focused on that, and that's fine. The second, a little bit happy to be in space. They come to the conference, a lot of business cards going back and forth. They talk, they don't really follow up, and they stay at the level that's there. What I want to talk about is the masterpiece builder that I talked to, that gave me the vision and articulated what we wanted to have. How many of you have projects in here that you're working on right now to have social impact in blockchain? So a few of you. So you care about what you're doing. Is that safe to say? Yeah? Sure. So when you're building these items, have the perspective on how does the social impact get into there, and you can also do well by doing good. Meaning, not only saying I'm passionate about this, but actually go out and execute the items that you're going to do. Actually really put forward the effort and the time to make sure that the world knows what's going to happen with your project. Making sure also they know the fact that the future is changing, and you're going to be part of that future, and you're going to change it. So, in essence, the only thing that I want to share with you guys is doing well by doing good is not a bad thing. It's okay to capitalize. It's okay to be entrepreneurship. It's okay to have your projects have key performance indicators that get you to where you need to go. So outside of that, that is the message that I had for you today, and I hope you guys have a great rest of the conference. Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to thank Chris Vassallo and Project Freedom for inviting me over. I myself am not a tech guy. I'm not an expert in blockchain. I'm from the other side of the coin. I'm what you might call a user, consumer. I'm Brazilian. I'm Maltese, but I lived in Brazil for 30 years and have just recently relocated to Malta. For these last 30 years, I worked in agribusiness, agriculture, farming, and Chris has invited me over today to talk about the importance of technology and blockchain for food security. So I have 15 minutes to talk to you. I hope I won't be too long because the topic is quite complex. Food security is all about three pillars, basically availability of food, access to the food, and consumption of the food. Ideally, you have price stability also for consumers and for the sellers. In normal conditions, you have adequate supplies in today's world, food supplies, I mean, but unfortunately, they are unevenly distributed. Besides that, you have situations where from a situation of food security, you have food insecurity. And there are three main factors that cause food insecurity around the world. The first one is climatic shocks, drought or excessive rainfall. At least once in every 5 years, you have great producing regions around the world that suffer from drought conditions. Obviously, when that happens, food production goes down and prices go up. You also have economic conditions that affect food security and transforming it into food insecurity, especially in developing nations, like some African nations, Asian nations, and Latin American nations. Obviously, every time you have an economic crisis, investments go down, and the farmer has the same strategy. When the country is passing through some economic problems, obviously he doesn't invest and doesn't produce more because at that moment it's not economically worth it. And you also have situations of food insecurity in regions of conflicts, wars, or geopolitical issues. Two clear examples recently were in Syria, where there was the war, and Venezuela. You also, on television, on the news, the great food shortages that were being experienced. So although in today's world we have a situation where apparently there is enough food, at least in the Western world, that's what we think, there are still about 125 million people in 51 countries facing some kind of food crisis, and another 800 million people that do not have enough food for daily use. The last great food crisis, you all remember, was in 2008, where due exactly to those climatic problems which we mentioned before in various producing countries, you had a situation where production dropped so drastically that, for example, the price of rice went up by nearly 300%, the price of wheat by nearly 208%, and price of corn by nearly 240%. These are staple foods. Due to all that, we saw food riots in 34 different countries, and an extra 100 million people were pushed into poverty. What can we expect for the future? If in today's world, it seems that we don't have a guarantee of food security, we are a population of something over 7 billion people. What will happen by 250 when the population will grow to nearly 10 billion people? Obviously, this is a problem that we have to talk about. Where will we find enough food to feed the 9 billion people in the near future? Food production on its own, ignoring any climatic shocks, but food production on its own by 2050 has to increase by at least 60%. How can this be done if we have limited availability of suitable land and fresh water? In our opinion, this can only be done if we support small-scale farmers and farming. And by small-scale farming and farmers, we include farmers in the Western world and farmers which are small farmers in developing countries, which are also considered as poor farmers. In today's world, we have around 570 million farmers, of which 500 million are considered small farmers or even, depending on the country, poor farmers. AgTech Technology is already doing a lot for these farmers. If you take, for example, animal health and nutrition, precision agriculture, food safety, traceability, soil plant, crop science, sustainability, big data, software applications. A lot has been achieved during these last years. This is helping the farmer a lot, but there are two sectors we believe that could be a game changer for the farmer in the future. This is regards trade and agri-finance. These are the two topics that we believe that technology could be very important for farmers in the future. So nowadays we have on the farms, from the old ways of farming, you have small farms that use drones, artificial intelligence based on mechanization, data collection. Farmer has quite a number of tools today to be able to produce well inside the farm, ideally also using sustainable practices, although in poor countries it's no use teaching the farmer to use sustainable practices, teaching him against waste or whatever, because farmers in developing countries need much more than that. We must remember that 78% of poor people live in rural areas and work mainly in agriculture. And this is where we must help to lift them out of poverty. For these kind of farmers, ecological issues, water conservation, it's important, but it will not solve their problems. These farmers already have started to have access to technology to produce well and lower costs. The problem is that these farmers are not able to access the markets. So they produce well, but they cannot sell their products. And this is where we believe that blockchain can help in the future. Blockchain for agriculture. This can be the challenge, collaboration between the technical people and the people in the industry. The challenge which can have an important social impact, always referring to the small farms and the farms in developing countries. What are the main problems encountered by the small farmers? Well, there's a disconnection between the buyer and seller. There is a lack of transparency regarding the product origin. The processes to trade usually are very costly. Land registration is very difficult, especially to the low-income farmers. And above all, access to agri-insurance, agri-finance, and trade finance. Now, we all know, as we said in the beginning, that farming depends a lot on the weather, on climate. And the small farmers, unfortunately, have no access to insurance to insure their land, their crop against any climatic disaster. So the farmers who are the most important in the supply chain end up with difficult access to the markets, to the buyers, and this always keeps them in the low income bracket. So they can never grow economically. We believe that blockchain is here. Obviously, I heard you all say before, you're the experts. It's in the initial phase, but we believe that it will simplify the food supply chain. Data management across the complex network of farmers, brokers, distributors. Anyway, from producing to the end consumer, this is all here to help. Smart contracts, very important, credibility between buyer and seller. We believe that the end result will be lower production costs and access to the markets. When this happens, the small farmer, the poor farmer, will increase his profitability, will increase production, and obviously will help the issue of food security. After all, although the majority of poor people live in rural areas, but agriculture is also one of the most powerful tools for raising incomes of the very poor. And that's why we need to empower the small farmers through economic inclusion, because only by selling well will they be able to make more money. A better economic situation for farmers means that they will produce more and help problems of food security that we talked in the beginning. This will combat the problem of hunger, poverty, and food security at the same time. We cannot imagine a world without farmers, a world without farming. Here in Malta, for example, it is very difficult to find full-time farmers. Why? Because economically, it's not worth it. They find other jobs and they do part-time farming. One might say, yes, but Malta is so small. Malta is not important. Malta is not important as a grain-producing or a food-producing country. Okay, so let's go to the biggest country in the world, the largest populated country in the world, China, 1.4 billion people. During the last 10, 15 years, 300 million people in China left rural areas to live in the big cities. Why? Because economically, it wasn't worth it anymore to live in rural areas. Wages are low, income is low. In the big cities, obviously, they were earning more. In the next 5 to 15 years, it is estimated that another 300 million people in China will move from rural areas to live in the big cities. So although we cannot imagine a world without farmers, at the same time, the number of farmers in the world are decreasing, and we know that the world needs more food to be produced. So every now and then, to create awareness in the world, farmer uses the slogan, "If you ate today, thank a farmer." We are all involved in agriculture in one way or another. If you wear clothes, this is a byproduct of agriculture. If you have breakfast, if you have lunch, if you have dinner, this is a byproduct of agriculture. So we are all involved in the agriculture chain. Instead of asking you to thank a farmer, I'm going to go the way around. For us who are in the farming community, I'd like to thank you for buying our products, and above all, thank you for bringing us the technology that will help tackle and solve many of our problems. I believe that together, in collaboration, we can bring the freedom that the small farmer needs and prepare him for a world without borders. Thank you very much for your attention.
My name is Victoria, and I'm the incubation lead of Odyssey. You already heard this name a couple of times, right? Odyssey. So most people know us because we organize the biggest blockchain and AI hackathon. Although today I would like to actually share with you how we incubate ecosystem to solve complex problems together with mass collaboration. Because we believe that this is something that you could use for your own projects. So look around, right? We live in an interconnected society of complex problems. Let's talk about our dear enemy, climate change. Is it my problem only? Is it only your problem? Is it their problem? No, we are talking about shared problems that are owned by no one, but everybody is influenced by them. They are borderless. They include interconnected factors that are so difficult to solve by just one party. That's why at Odyssey, we believe that we need to build a public digital infrastructure that is decentralized, that is ownerless, that is open source, so that everybody could build, contribute together in order to achieve an unimaginable impact. And all of this is done actually through collaborative ecosystems. These are interconnected, self-sustainable, and of course community-driven. So what do we do actually at Odyssey? We actually created an open innovation program where we try to connect innovative ideas with government, with corporates, with NGOs, with a purpose actually to solve these complex challenges. All together for mass collaboration using technology. We try to do it in 3 phases, let's put it this way. So first what we believe, overall, if you start a social project or any project, you need to articulate the challenge that you try to solve in the context of this bigger problem, considering the multi-stakeholder approach. Secondly, what we do, we actually create a support system for co-creation. And eventually, the third part is building an ecosystem around your solution. How do we do it, like more in phases, in stages? So we have 5 blocks. We always start with Future of Trust Summit, where we actually define these challenges. So what we do, we bring together a bunch of stakeholders. It starts from corporates to government to, and finishing with developers, scientists, regulators, and so on and so forth. So what we do at this event, we actually put them at a round table. We put one governmental person, one corporate, one developer, one creative person, one startup, and so on and so forth, and they discuss these problems. They define them, the challenges. Eventually, after you define the challenge, if you take it, this is like horizontal knowledge, right? So now you have to dig deeper into these challenges and do like more of a vertical approach to it and see what is actually missing, what the holes are, right? So what we noticed within our ecosystem development, so all these people that initially are somehow allocated to a table, to a problem, right? But they are still kind of random. They are not sure if they are like suitable, to that challenge or so. We start noticing that there are like some of our, stakeholders that pop up. So these are like, for example, regulators or the lawyers that start sharing their knowledge. So the main idea of like the deep dives that we create is for the entire ecosystem or our entire community to learn from each other. So we disperse the knowledge. Well, now you have the knowledge. Now we try to create a safe place for co-creation. And ta-da, here is the hackathon. So this year, we brought together 1,500 people brain power to solve 20 complex challenges by creating 100 prototype solutions. It was pretty massive, but it was beautiful, to be honest. Because what you start seeing is that this entire community starts grouping it with each other, right? So they create allies in a way. So we had, people started grouping into challenge owners, we have the teams that develop the solutions, and we have the Jedi. We had 200 experts in different topics, in whatsoever you might wish, that would co-create the solution together with you as a team. Now, you have the solution. So when your solution is only 1 day old, we do Odyssey Ignite, where we try to bring together other stakeholders related per se to your solution in order to co-create together with, with the teams, the potential mass adoption. So again, here, we divided the entire, crowd into on tables, and people joining the table and contributing with per se like, listen, this solution of yours, I could use it. And this is what I can commit towards it. And this is the beauty, of actually igniting these collaborative ecosystems. But it's just the start. It's like you meet, it's the first time encounter. So of course, afterwards, we start incubating these winning solutions because we had 20 winners. So right now we are actually in the middle of the incubation program. And what do we do here? We actually bring even more people more relevant people to their table. So from this, like, you've seen like the circles, right? So I'll show you the next. I hope it's understandable, but I'll explain. So throughout the incubation program, we do not provide help with entrepreneurial journey, so like the usual accelerators, right? So you don't go to workshops and so on. But what we do, we actually create this an ecosystem of allies that you can eventually use in order to leverage it. So what we usually preach is say like, put your end users at the beginning. And I would like to use Dowd's example. So Dowd is one of our winners from this year. So DAUD is creating a proof of impact for projects, right? So the end user, in this case, are the social projects, right? Then what we say, if you need to understand the needs of these guys first, right? Talk to them, bring them to the table and so on. Then you need to go a bit further and to actually think about your adoption drivers. And we have Chris over here who actually introduced us these 2 days to the Maltese government. So Maltese government is an adoption driver because they could implement it within their structure, right? So if you register as an NGO, you could do it via the platform. For example, you actually get a proof of impact that you actually, okay, you are an NGO or a social enterprise, right? And you can use and keep track of all the projects out there in your country. Of course, it's not less important to build your developers community or contributors community, right? Who are these people? So, for example, the Topia guys, they are using other teams from the same track, right? That from the hackathon to help them build the solution. You are not alone. If you find allies that you align upon the fact that all the parties could benefit out of this protocol to be out there, makes perfect sense to put efforts together to actually build it, right? Especially when you don't have money. Especially when you just started it and you are bootstrapping. And eventually, of course, it's about the entire ecosystem, building around it. What I mean by here is, for example, having good lawyers, allies that can help you out, or CSR specialists, right? So by looking at here, put your end users at the core, try to find your adoption drivers, try to create a developer community or contributors community around you to help you out, especially at the beginning of the process. And don't forget about the entire ecosystem. And I would like to finish up with just a video of sum up of what we've done, this year. So if the guy from the, because it was a bit complicated with the. Maybe sound, that would be nice. We give it, hey.
Welcome, Odyssey 2019.
1,500 people working really together and collaborating, that's for sure a start of a transformation.
We are not optimizing the status quo, but really finding new ways to organize our society in a much better way.
The idea is that this rover is able to collect data about the forest. So, for example, soil conditions, biodiversity, to give the forest some type of self-awareness.
We're building a disaster recovery system, which essentially is a backup form of internet that activates when all other systems go down.
So we're trying to modernize fundamentally how we do government. It's a really big challenge.
People learn from us how we look at those business propositions, and we learn from them. Well, we bring all the information back to the organization, and then we hope we can better supervise. So it's also for better quality supervision.
The energy, the number of people, the amount of help we get from the Jedis and from the organization and everything, it's something else.
The scale is just nuts. How many teams? This variety is just incredible.
And people are thinking up
every year again at this hackathon brilliantly new things, and I think we're getting closer and closer to having the technology at a level that this is really scalable.
So we have to outcompete the destructive systems in developing sustainable systems that are more profitable and are better for nature and people.
This event is for the fast one, yeah. Is where you directly show to the clients the product, and they immediately see, like, can they identify themselves with that product, and can they actually help shaping it?
There are so many things that you didn't know and now you found out. You realize how ignorant you are, and then how many more perspectives that can be out there and ways to collaborate to make things happen.
This is an incubator for ecosystems that solve complex problems through mass collaboration.
I think there's a cultural shift with blockchain I've never seen with any other industry or tech. You may be in the same quote-unquote competitive industry, but actually you should collaborate and work together still. The walls are breaking down, and many good things are happening from that.
I think it's fine. Thanks a bunch, guys. If you are contributing to the next digital public infrastructure, let's talk. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you so much for attending this conference. Basically, I would like to thank our partners, Malta Blockchain Summit, NHP, Cybercoin, Busyman, Crown, Nakoshi Digital, Genesis Block, Pacific, ACT, Odyssey. Steve, thank you for coming all the way from Brazil. Giovanni and everybody. Ethiopia, you're our partners now. Thank you. We're not forgetting you. So if anybody wants to speak to us about any projects, connecting people, that's what we do. Please find us. We're here. Thank you so much. Thank you.